Hey guys, tonight we begin with the remarkable lives and even more remarkable near-death experiences of medieval mothers. The women who braved childbirth in an era when your best prenatal care was a prayer and your midwife also moonlighted as the village gossip. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from. Let the mind drift, let the breath grow slow, as we step back into a world where time itself moved differently. A world of cobblestone paths, of wooden beams and smoky hearths, of winters that pressed hard and summers that gave only brief relief. It is the Middle Ages. And in a small village, far from the sight of kings or courts, a woman notices the first signs that she carries life within her. For her, there are no tests, no doctors, no instruments to measure certainty. There is only the knowledge of her own body, the heaviness in her limbs, the missed rhythm of her monthly cycle, the faint stirrings that feel at once like hunger and like something far deeper. She knows, quietly, that she is with child. And in that knowledge comes not only joy, but fear. To be pregnant in her world is not a private matter. Her body, her belly, her future, all become public. The women of the village notice her pallor, the way she eats more slowly, the way she touches her stomach without realizing. They murmur among themselves. Some offer blessings. Others offer warnings cloaked in superstition. For in this time, pregnancy is wrapped in mystery, in danger, in a fragile hope that may or may not be fulfilled. There are no physicians here. There are midwives, yes, wise women whose hands have delivered many children, whose knowledge is born of experience rather than books. But their role is both revered and feared. If a child thrives, they are praised. If a child dies, suspicion falls upon them like a dark cloud. And so, even before the pains of labor begin, the expectant mother walks beneath the weight of judgment. Every day, she is surrounded by rules. Do not eat too much fish, the old women say, or your child will be born weak and cold. Do not gaze at fire, for the flame will mark your baby's skin. Do not walk beneath the light of the full moon, for it will tangle your child's soul. These warnings seep into her thoughts until each choice feels perilous. Each bite of food, each step in the night, each glance toward the hearth feels heavy with consequence. She obeys, not always because she believes, but because fear is stronger than doubt. And through it all, she works. There is no pause for her condition. The fields must be tended. The hearth must be kept. Water must be carried from the well. Her back aches as she bends. Her ankles swell as she walks. Still, there is no choice. In the Middle Ages, survival leaves no room for rest. At night, when she lies in the dim glow of the fire, her thoughts wander to the dangers that await. She has seen other women buried too young, their newborns lying still beside them. She remembers the hush of mourning, the tolling of bells, the way life in the village continues even as grief lingers like smoke. She knows that she, too, may walk that path. And yet, she cannot turn away. She whispers prayers into the silence, calling upon saints, upon angels, upon the Virgin herself. She touches the small charm around her neck, a relic blessed by the priest, believing that in its worn surface there may be protection. Pregnancy, in her world, is not a journey of 9 months. It is a constant negotiation with fear, with faith, with the unseen. Each moment is both a preparation for life and a shadow of death. She moves forward with quiet endurance because there is no other choice. This is her beginning. This is the silent expectation of a medieval mother. In the dimness of a chamber, stone walls softened by tapestries that barely kept away the draft of winter, a woman labored with the slow rhythm of all those who came before her. The floor was strewn with rushes, renewed only when their scent soured, and in the air hung the mingled perfume of herbs, smoke, and the quiet sweat of fear. Outside, the church bells tolled faintly across the village, marking the hours in which her body bent to nature's will. Here, in this place where life hovered uncertain between arrival and departure, there was no silence. The midwife whispered prayers under her breath, ancient charms that flowed from memory rather than book, words stitched together from fragments of pagan past and Christian faith. An old charm might call on Saint Margaret, protector of women in childbirth, yet woven into it were still the older songs that once called upon goddesses unnamed, spirits of river and stone, protectors of womb and breath. The laboring mother gripped the wooden frame of the birthing stool, a device shaped for necessity rather than comfort. It was carved smooth by generations of hands that had clutched it before her, polished by sweat, by the trembling force of life passing through fragile flesh. Her cries rose not as screams but as waves, rising and falling, carrying with them the weight of all the mothers who had endured. The chamber was dimly lit by tallow candles, their smoke rising in slow spirals, staining the beams above with soot. Each flame flickered like a small guardian, pushing back the darkness that always lurked too near. For in childbirth, the shadow of death was never absent. A fever could follow the birth, a wound unseen could bleed within, and both mother and child could be lost in the very hour that promised life. And yet, hope filled the room as tangibly as breath. The midwife's hands, weathered and steady, moved with a practiced grace. She tied charms to the bedpost, a strip of cloth torn from the church altar, a sprig of rosemary, a carved token passed down through families. These were talismans, half believed and wholly cherished, for in the struggle between life and death, even a sliver of hope was held tightly. The mother's eyes closed, sweat beading her brow, her lips moving in prayer. Not always her own words, sometimes merely the rhythm of the Lord's Prayer, spoken more to steady her spirit than to beg for miracles. The midwife leaned close, her voice soft, coaxing, reminding her that every pain was a door, every contraction a passage. She murmured that the Virgin herself had suffered, that she too had borne the weight of birth, and so the laboring woman was not alone. Outside, the village continued its ordinary rhythm. Men tended to livestock, children carried water, the smith hammered at his forge. Life did not halt for one woman's trial, and yet, in that small chamber, all of existence seemed to narrow to the curve of her body, the cries of effort, the whispered prayers. Hours stretched long, until time itself seemed to dissolve into the rhythm of breath and pain. At last, when the first thin cry of the child split the chamber, it was as if the world itself exhaled. A new voice, fragile and sharp, filled the air, a sound that was both triumph and promise. The midwife lifted the infant, swaddled quickly in linen, and held it aloft just for a moment. She announced the sex, for in that moment the child's fate already began to shape: boy or girl, heir or helper, strength or burden, future husband or wife. The mother, exhausted, reached with trembling hands, and the babe was placed against her breast. And for a heartbeat, there was silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of wonder. In that chamber, in the dimness of candlelight, two lives intertwined, one reborn from labor, the other just beginning. The midwife whispered again, but now her words were blessing, not plea. The herbs burned, the candlelight swayed, and in the hush of the medieval night, life had prevailed. The room is dark, save for the glow of a single tallow candle. The air is heavy with herbs, rosemary hung above the door, sage smoldering gently in a clay bowl, juniper tied in sprigs near the birthing chair. And then, at last, the sound that every gathered woman waits for, that trembling, piercing note, the cry of a newborn child. In that moment, all breath is held. Mothers who have seen this before close their eyes in prayer. The midwife lifts the child carefully, her hands rough with years of labor yet steady with long practice. The child is not yet fully of this world. It is believed that the soul hovers, uncertain, lingering between realms. The danger is not over. Quickly the women act. Warm cloths are brought. Salt is sprinkled upon the tiny lips. Sometimes wine, sometimes honey water, brushed across the mouth as if to invite life itself to stay within the fragile body. There is a silence, except for the infant's whimper, until the midwife nods. The child breathes well. A sigh of relief moves through the chamber. But no one relaxes fully. They all know how thin the line is between survival and loss. Already, plans turn toward baptism. The Church teaches that an unbaptized child, should it perish, may never see heaven. So urgent is this fear that if the child is weak, The midwife herself may perform an emergency baptism with a few drops of holy water kept ready in the house. It is a ritual of both desperation and hope, whispered words binding heaven and earth in those fragile first hours of life. The mother, pale and trembling, watches from her straw-padded bed. Her work is not done. Her bleeding continues. The women around her press hot stones to her belly, murmur prayers, stroke her hair. Some whisper charms against the evil eye, fearing that jealousy or curses might claim mother or child alike. She listens to the sound of her baby, wrapped in swaddling cloths, passed from hand to hand, touched, blessed, protected with gestures old as memory. In this moment, joy is laced with dread. For every birth in the Middle Ages is both a triumph and a trial. Every cry of a child is a note in the balance between life and death. And every woman who survives the birthing bed is counted fortunate, a survivor of one of the most dangerous rites of passage of her age. The room smells of sweat, herbs, blood, and smoke. It is at once sacred and ordinary, tender and brutal. And yet, in this chamber of fragile bodies and whispered faith, life continues, generation after generation, a chain of mothers, daughters, sons, and fathers, each one born beneath the shadow of uncertainty, each one welcomed with trembling hands and ancient prayers. The first hours have passed. The newborn lies swaddled, a fragile bundle of life resting against the mother's chest. She is exhausted beyond words. Her body feels both triumphant and fragile, as if she has walked through fire and returned only just whole. The midwife and the women of the village do not leave her side. They whisper prayers, murmur blessings, and watch with eyes sharpened by experience. In these days, the mother is confined to her bed, not by choice, but by necessity. Her body has endured a trial that leaves it vulnerable to fever, to bleeding, to the unseen perils that may claim her life even after the child has cried its first breath. She is fed broths and gruels, simple nourishment designed to restore strength. Her lips are dry, her hands swollen. Every small movement requires care. Every breath carries the memory of the labor, the pain, the uncertainty that accompanied every contraction. Visitors come and go. Family members bearing gifts of clean linens, herbs, and blessed water. They murmur encouragement, remind her to rest, to drink, to pray. The village watches, for the survival of mother and child is a matter of collective concern. And in this, there is comfort, the knowledge that she is not alone, that her community carries some of her burden, that her fragility is honored with attention and ritual. Yet fear is never far. Even a healthy child may succumb to sickness, to cold, to the misfortunes that await every fragile life. The mother whispers prayers for the child's protection, tracing the cross across the tiny body, murmuring blessings under her breath. She lights candles when she can, offering flame to the spirits who guard newborns. Salt may be sprinkled, water blessed, charms tied to the cradle. Each gesture is small, yet it is believed to matter, for in this world, care is both practical and spiritual. Time moves slowly. Each day blends into the next, marked by the baby's cries, by the mother's slow recovery, by the subtle changes in strength and color of the flesh. She watches as the infant sucks at the breast, learns the rhythm of warmth and feeding, learns the pulse of life itself. She touches the tiny fingers, counts the toes, listens to each sound, memorizes every breath. And through this, a bond is formed, a tether between generations, delicate yet unbreakable. Outside, the village carries on. Carts rumble along dirt paths, the blacksmith hammers at his anvil, the children run to fetch water. Life moves forward, indifferent to the perilous miracle that has just occurred in one small chamber. And yet, within that quiet, candlelit room, time seems to stretch. Here, life is sacred, and every heartbeat is celebrated. This is the rhythm of early motherhood in the Middle Ages. It is quiet, it is slow, it is filled with prayer, with worry, with hope. It is a life lived at the intersection of the miraculous and the mortal, where every breath, every gesture, every whispered charm counts toward survival. And the mother learns, slowly, day by day, to navigate this new existence, with her newborn held close, her body recovering, and her heart forever altered by the fragility and wonder of life. The infant lies swaddled, warm against the mother's chest, a tiny life held delicately in linen wrappings. In the Middle Ages, this first week is the most precarious. Every breath, every movement is a reminder that the fragile soul may not yet be safe in this world. Even before the sun rises, preparations begin. Water is drawn from the well and carried with care. It may be blessed by the village priest or by the midwife, who knows the secret prayers that call upon saints, angels, and ancient spirits. The child's name, already whispered in the mother's thoughts, will soon be spoken aloud, as the act of baptism makes both the name and the soul official, accepted into the community and under the watch of heaven. The midwife performs the ritual when the child is too weak to endure a formal ceremony at the church. A few drops of water, traced carefully across the infant's forehead, mark the beginning of life within both spiritual and worldly bounds. The words are soft, almost a hum, yet they carry the weight of hope, fear, and the collective prayers of all who surround the mother and child. Outside, the villagers observe with solemn attention. They understand the fragility of life and the thin line between blessing and loss. Women whisper of children they have lost, of those who did not survive the first month, of fever and cold that crept quietly into the smallest body. These shadows linger, even as joy fills the chamber with warmth. The mother holds her baby, rocking gently, whispering love and reassurance in a language older than books. Her hands tremble, partly from exhaustion, partly from the awareness of how tenuous life can be. The midwife strokes the infant's tiny fingers, murmuring protective words, while the other women move softly around the room, tending the fire, arranging clean cloths, adjusting the bedding, and sprinkling herbs for comfort and protection. Every action is both practical and symbolic. Salt is scattered on the threshold to keep away evil. A candle burns at the head of the bed, its flame a beacon of life. Tiny pieces of cloth, embroidered with crosses, are pinned near the infant's swaddling to guard against unseen forces. In this era, superstition and faith are intertwined, and the survival of the child depends as much on careful ritual as on the strength of body. Hours pass, measured by the small cries of the infant and the mother's slow recovery. Outside, life continues in its ordinary rhythm. Carts creak, animals stir, and the village breathes as one living organism. Yet within this chamber, time seems suspended, every second stretched, every heartbeat amplified. The mother's eyes linger on her child. She marvels at the tiny face, at the delicate hands, at the rise and fall of the chest. Each movement is a victory. Each cry is proof of life. And yet, fear never fully leaves the room. It is present in every whisper, in every precaution, in every glance at the fragile bundle in her arms. This is the rhythm of early life and survival in the medieval world, a delicate interplay of hope and dread, care and superstition, love and vigilance. Life is celebrated and protected, every ritual and blessing a small shield against the vast unknown, a tether to both the community and the divine. And in these quiet, shadowed moments, the mother begins to understand the immense weight of her new existence, not just as a woman who has given birth, but as a guardian of life, a participant in the eternal cycle of fragility and resilience, of fear and wonder that defines human experience in this ancient, fragile world. Days turn into weeks. The small chamber, once filled with the acute tension of birth, now hums with a quieter rhythm, the rhythm of recovery, of survival, of life cautiously moving forward. The mother rests on her straw-filled bed, swathed in blankets, her body slowly regaining strength after the violence of labor. Every ache, every twinge, is a reminder of what she has endured, a testament to the fragility of human flesh and the resilience of the human spirit. Her hands, still calloused from daily work, now move with gentle care, stroking her infant, adjusting the swaddling cloth, warming the baby's tiny feet against her own. Each breath is measured, careful, for fatigue and weakness still linger. She drinks broths and herbal teas, warmed by the fire, each sip a balm for her body and soul. The midwife returns often, checking on her, smoothing her hair, whispering reassurance that the mother and child are thriving, for now. But the world beyond the chamber is waiting. The fields need tending. The hearth must be fed. The laundry, the cooking, the endless tasks of survival all continue regardless of the mother's delicate state. Slowly, painfully, she begins to rise, first sitting, then standing, supported by hands that guide her, arms that hold her steady. Every movement carries the memory of the contractions, the cries, the sweating exertion of birth. Yet she persists, because rest is a luxury rarely afforded in this world. The village watches her progress, offering small encouragements, reminders of duties, but also quiet acknowledgement of the sacredness of what she has endured. Women who have walked this path before speak gently, sharing tips for recovery, warm compresses for aching muscles, careful feeding schedules for the infant, methods to stave off infection and fatigue. The knowledge is practical, earned through experience, passed from one generation to the next, a lifeline in a time when written medicine is rare and superstition mingles with necessity. She learns to balance vigilance with exhaustion. The infant must be fed regularly, bathed carefully, protected from drafts, fever, and malevolent spirits. The mother tends to the household in fragments, rising only when she can, resting when the body commands. Each day is a negotiation between duty and survival, between fatigue and necessity, between hope and fear. Her body begins to heal, slowly regaining strength, yet every movement, every twinge, is a reminder that life is delicate. The memory of childbirth lingers in every muscle, every joint, every breath. She walks with caution, mindful of the shadows that creep through her home, mindful of the unseen dangers that have claimed so many others. Evenings are spent in quiet reflection. The infant sleeps, the fire burns low, and she feels the pulse of life, steady and fragile, flowing between her and the child. She whispers prayers for protection, for longevity, for strength, and for the courage to continue the endless cycle of work that defines her existence. In the medieval world, recovery is not a return to ease but a careful navigation between vulnerability and responsibility. She emerges from these weeks with new knowledge of her body, new understanding of her limits, and a renewed reverence for the fragile miracle of survival. Her life is no longer solely her own. It is intertwined with the life of her child, the watchful eyes of her community, and the unseen forces that govern the world. She knows the days ahead will be filled with toil, with care, with a constant dance between hope and fear. And yet, in these quiet, candlelit moments, she breathes deeply, finding solace in the rhythm of life continuing, one heartbeat, one breath, one small victory at a time. The sun rises slowly over the village, spilling pale gold across the thatched roofs and muddy lanes. Inside the small chamber, the mother rocks her infant gently, feeling the warmth of life pressed against her chest. Every heartbeat is mirrored in her own, every breath shared between them. Yet, even as she tends to her child, she is not alone in this labor of care. Other women of the village gather quietly, not to intrude, but to guide. They bring knowledge accumulated over generations, the secrets of herbal infusions, the preparation of nourishing broths, the gentle massage to soothe aching limbs, the small gestures that can protect both mother and child from unseen dangers. Each touch, each word, each whisper carries a history older than stone cottages, older than the winding paths that connect the village. They speak of colic and fever, of proper swaddling to ensure warmth, of prayers to saints and spirits who guard the fragile spark of life. Sometimes, their voices tremble as they recall infants lost to illness, to the chill of winter nights, to the invisible hand of misfortune. The mother listens, absorbs, remembers, and acts, her body slowly regaining strength while her mind learns the vigilance required to keep life alive in this precarious age. The midwife, ever watchful, moves between them with quiet authority. She inspects the infant, checks the mother's pulse, adjusts the warmth of the fire, and whispers guidance that blends practical medicine with ritual. She ties tiny charms to the crib, burns protective herbs, hums ancient songs that echo in the dim chamber. In this space, life and spirituality intermingle. Care is both action and devotion. Outside, the village carries on. The men tend the fields, the children fetch water, the blacksmith hammers at his forge. life continues its ordinary rhythm, indifferent to the delicate struggle within the chamber. Yet the mother knows that survival is never solitary. Her strength is sustained by the hands and hearts of those around her, by the midwife's wisdom, by the shared knowledge of countless women who have walked this path before. She rocks her infant through the day, through the gentle light of morning and the heavy stillness of afternoon. She whispers blessings, kisses tiny hands and feet, checks the warmth of fingers and toes. Every small movement matters. Every moment is a negotiation with chance, a balancing act between vigilance and exhaustion, between love and fear. In the quiet evening, the mother sits back against the straw mattress, her body still tender from labor, her hands lined with the fatigue of constant care. She watches as the infant sleeps, listening to the gentle rise and fall of breath, feeling the small, miraculous rhythms of life continue. And in that quiet, surrounded by the soft murmurs of communal support, she understands the profound truth of motherhood in this age, that life is both fragile and resilient, that survival depends on connection, and that even in hardship, there is grace. This is the rhythm of early life in a medieval village. It is slow. It is delicate. It is a dance of vigilance, ritual, and unwavering care. And it is here, in the soft murmur of shared knowledge and the tender gaze of a mother, that life persists, fragile yet enduring, day by day, heartbeat by heartbeat, breath by breath. Even in the warmth of the chamber, a shadow lingers. Life is fragile. Every cough, every shiver, every sudden silence carries the unspoken possibility of loss. In the Middle Ages, infants are not always granted the safety we take for granted today. Their bodies are small, their immunity tenuous, their very existence a daily negotiation with unseen forces. The mother watches closely, her eyes tracing every movement of the tiny limbs, every rise and fall of the chest. She listens for the subtle signals of illness. A whimper too frequent, a skin too pale, a fever rising unnoticed. Her heart trembles at the thought of what might befall her child. And yet, there is action to be taken, a ritualized set of protections passed down through generations. The midwife prepares small doses of herbal teas, chamomile for colic, sage to calm fever, mint to aid digestion. Each potion is measured with care, steeped in respect and belief, for these remedies are as much medicine as they are charm against misfortune. Candles are lit, their flames flickering in silent vigil. Salt may be sprinkled around the crib, the threshold marked, a quiet barrier against malevolent eyes and wandering spirits. Prayers are whispered, sometimes softly, sometimes urgent and loud. The names of saints are invoked. Saint and for mothers, Saint Nicholas for children, Saint Margaret for protection in birth. The words feel heavy with intention, each syllable carrying hope, fear, and the weight of experience. The women of the village hum ancient tunes, songs older than memory, rhythms that are believed to bind the child to life itself. Despite all care, the mother cannot escape the anxiety that sits like a small stone upon her chest. She has seen neighbors lose their infants, watched grief and mourning sweep quietly through the village. She knows the fragility of this stage. The first month is called the month of peril, for a reason, and she tends her child with constant attention, vigilant and tender. In these moments, superstition and practical care intertwine. The child's cradle may be lined with charms sewn from scraps of holy cloth, threads believed to ward off the unseen. A piece of iron may be hidden nearby, thought to repel spirits. A drop of blessed water on the infant's lips is not just faith, but a lifeline, a prayer made manifest in small, tangible acts. Through the day and into the night, the mother's gaze remains fixed upon her child. Every sigh, every flutter of movement is met with quiet relief. Every tiny smile or burble is celebrated as a victory, a sign that the delicate thread of life holds strong against the many unseen threats. The midwife murmurs reassurance, guiding the mother's hands, reminding her of each protective measure, teaching her the subtle art of vigilance that will define the infant's first weeks. Together, they move in rhythm with life itself, balancing care and caution, hope and fear, devotion and exhaustion. This is the world of early life in the medieval village. It is slow, it is tender, it is full of ritual, and it is heavy with the knowledge that life must be actively preserved. And yet, in the quiet of the candlelit chamber, the fragile spark of existence endures, nurtured by love, vigilance, and the enduring presence of community. The mother rests again, her body still tender, her spirit heavy with the quiet knowledge of what is expected of her. In the village, every woman understands that childbirth is not a singular event, but the beginning of a cycle, one that will repeat itself with relentless insistence. A single child, even safely delivered, does not end the expectation. Society demands continuation of lineage, the perpetuation of family, and the survival of the household. The midwife speaks softly, guiding her through the wisdom of recovery while hinting at the inevitability of the future. "Soon, another child will come," she murmurs, not as a threat, but as a truth etched into the rhythms of life. The mother hears it, and a quiet anxiety threads through her days. Each rest is measured against the knowledge that her body will again be called to endure, that her strength is finite, and yet her duty is infinite. Meals are simple, nourishment sparse, yet carefully prepared to restore what little energy remains. Broths simmer over the hearth, herbs are boiled and sipped, the sweetness of honey a rare indulgence. Each mouthful is both sustenance and ritual, a careful acknowledgement that her body is a vessel of life, deserving of attention, even amidst the demands that pull her outward to fields, chores, and care for others. Her hands move slowly, tending the infant, arranging blankets, checking warmth, soothing cries. Each gesture is measured, each motion deliberate. She knows the fragility of life, and yet she must balance it with her own recovery. Fatigue presses upon her relentlessly, a constant companion alongside the joy and fear of new life. Beyond her chamber, the village watches. Expectations are unspoken but pervasive. Mothers are valued for endurance, for the capacity to bear, to nurture, to manage both child and household. There is no room for complaint. There is only the rhythm of life that has persisted for generations. Yet within these walls, among those who care, there is acknowledgement, a quiet recognition of the strength it takes to survive, to continue, to nurture life even when one's own is stretched thin. In moments of stillness, she closes her eyes and breathes deeply, connecting to the legacy of countless women before her. Their knowledge, their courage, their endurance flow through her. Contraction remembered, each infant held, each loss mourned and survival celebrated, becomes part of the invisible strength that sustains her. Her days are a delicate balance of vigilance and rest, of care and expectation. Her body is a map of endurance, marked by fatigue, by tenderness, by the quiet ache of responsibility. And yet, in the midst of these demands, there is a profound connection to her child, to the community, to the lineage of women whose bodies and spirits have carried life forward generation after generation. This is the rhythm of medieval motherhood, a cycle of birth and recovery, of expectation and vigilance, of fragile life held tenderly in hands that know both suffering and triumph. And in this rhythm, despite exhaustion and fear, life persists, steady and unwavering, carried forward by endurance, by care, and by love that is both human and eternal. Beyond the walls of the birthing chamber, the village moves in its quiet, deliberate rhythm. Life continues, yet the arrival of a new child is never a private matter. In medieval times, childbirth is a communal experience, one that reaches beyond the mother and child to touch neighbors, family, and the unseen realm of spirits and saints. The midwife calls upon helpers, older women whose hands have guided countless births. They bring herbs, warm water, clean cloths, and prayers, their voices blending in soft unison. Each word carries intention, weaving protection around the mother and infant, invoking blessings that are both practical and spiritual. The community watches, offering silent support, carrying small gifts, whispering advice, and, sometimes, expressing worry. This shared presence reminds the mother that her struggle is also a shared responsibility, that life in the village is interdependent, and that every child belongs not just to a family, but to the community itself. Religious observances frame these moments. Baptism is not merely a rite of passage, but a crucial step in safeguarding the soul of the child. Holy water, prayers, and the presence of witnesses ensure that the infant is formally welcomed into the eyes of God, and that divine protection is invoked for the uncertain days ahead. Even in households distant from the church, faith intertwines with daily life. Blessings are murmured over the cradle, candles burn through nights, and charms, tokens, and sacred herbs are employed to keep evil at bay. The mother, in her exhaustion, feels the weight of these collective acts. Each gesture, each word, each prayer is a tether to a larger world. A world of belief, of history, of shared human concern. The infant is wrapped not only in swaddling cloths, but in the invisible embrace of tradition, protection, and communal hope. Yet within this sacred rhythm lies the shadow of fear. The midwife, while guiding the mother, remains alert to signs of danger: fever, weakness, subtle pallor in the infant's skin. The community acknowledges the fragility of life through ritual and vigilance, understanding that survival is never guaranteed. They watch, they pray, they act, blending practical care with spiritual intent. Even the mundane carries spiritual weight. A bowl of water set by the door, herbs strewn upon the windowsill, a whispered prayer before feeding, each act serves as both protection and devotion. Life is fragile, yet through collective attention and ritual, it is strengthened, supported, and sanctified. And in these quiet, candlelit hours, the mother rests, her body recovering, her mind aware of the delicate balance she navigates. She breathes in the scents of herbs, the warmth of the fire, the soft hum of protective voices, and she understands, as she has never understood before, the profound interconnectedness of life. That survival depends on her own vigilance, on the hands and hearts of the women around her, and on the unseen protection of God, saints, and ancient spirits. This is the world of medieval childbirth, a world where life is fragile yet cherished, perilous yet celebrated, intimate yet communal. And within this rhythm, mothers, infants, and villages together navigate the timeless dance of vulnerability and endurance, of fear and hope, of death and the miraculous persistence of life itself. Centuries pass, and the rhythm of life shifts. The flickering candlelight of medieval chambers gives way to gas lamps glowing along cobblestone streets. The earthy scent of herbs and straw is replaced by the briny tang of sea air, drifting over bustling towns and promenades. The world has changed, yet life's quiet truths, the fragile beauty of existence, the pursuit of joy, and the need for care, remain constant, echoing through time. The railway whistle pierces the dawn, carrying travelers from smoky cities into the embrace of the coast. Families, once confined to the narrow limits of their neighborhoods, now journey outward. They step from carriages and trains into the rhythm of sand and surf, the steady pulse of waves against the shore. The seaside, once a retreat for the privileged, now opens its arms to all who seek the gentle promise of leisure, health, and respite from toil. Brighton, Blackpool, Margate, names that conjure visions of bustling promenades, colorful bathing machines, and the laughter of children chasing gulls along the tide. Yet beneath the surface of amusement lies a careful negotiation between propriety and freedom. Victorian society, rigid in its codes and manners, imposes rules upon pleasure. Modesty must be preserved, behavior carefully monitored, and public spaces curated to reflect decorum even amidst play. Women, swathed in layers of fabric, step into the bathing machines, sliding into the sea with mechanical privacy, their faces flushed with excitement, anticipation, and a faint fear of exposure. Men and children watch from safe distance, while vendors offer sweet confections and souvenirs. The seaside is alive with energy, a space where social classes mingle under the careful supervision of etiquette, where industry meets leisure, and where tradition encounters innovation in the form of amusement arcades, donkey rides, and promenading couples. Railways have made this possible. No longer the privilege of aristocracy, the coastal holiday becomes a symbol of newfound mobility and social change. Factory workers, clerks, and artisans breathe the ocean air, feel the sand beneath their feet, and partake in the rituals of leisure once reserved for the elite. In this intersection of work, play, and travel, the Victorian seaside becomes a laboratory of cultural transformation, a space where freedom and constraint coexist, and where the human desire for refreshment and escape finds expression in the ebb and flow of tides. Amidst the chatter, the laughter, and the scent of salt and coal smoke mingling in the air, there is a subtle reminder that life, in any era, is shaped by the movement of time and the rhythms of society. The child who once lay swaddled in a medieval chamber is now mirrored in the eyes of Victorian families, in the curiosity of children chasing waves, in the careful watch of mothers and fathers guarding their young. The constancy of care, of vigilance, and of human delight persists, even as the forms of daily life transform. Here, on the edge of land and sea, society measures itself anew. Social mobility, innovation, and the democratization of leisure unfold beneath the vast sky, while human hearts continue to seek moments of calm, of joy, and of connection. And as the waves break rhythmically against the shore, they whisper the timeless story of life itself, fragile, enduring, and ever in motion, carrying forward generations who seek both survival and pleasure, both safety and adventure, both tradition and change. The seaside stretches endlessly, waves rolling in steady cadence, and upon the sand, a curious procession of wooden contraptions lines the shore, the bathing machines. Box-like structures on wheels, modesty preserved in polished wood, they are both a marvel and a necessity in Victorian society. For women, these machines are gateways, mechanical sanctuaries that allow the body to meet the sea without scandal, a space where propriety and pleasure converge in quiet harmony. The air is cool with salt and spray, the sunlight gilding the edges of canvas awnings. Women, layered in skirts and petticoats, step carefully into the machines, guided by attendants. Inside, the dim glow of enclosed wood provides privacy as they descend into the gentle embrace of the tide. Their laughter is hushed but present, an echo of freedom within a framework of constraint. Every movement, every gesture is measured, delicate, aware of the eyes that may linger, of society's watchful gaze even in the solitude of waves. Children chase the retreating foam, bare toes sinking into wet sand, their cries of delight harmonizing with the cry of gulls overhead. Fathers toss nets for small fish, pointing and laughing, while vendors ply their trade, ice cream, candies, trinkets that glitter in the sunlight. Leisure is structured, yet spontaneous, a dance of etiquette and delight. Even in play, social roles are acknowledged, but the shared space of the promenade softens boundaries, creating fleeting moments where classes mingle and laughter transcends social codes. The Victorian obsession with health shapes every action. Doctors of the day extol the virtues of sea bathing, of fresh air, of mineral-laden waves that promise rejuvenation. Families walk along the piers, breath deep and hearts lightened, absorbing the supposed therapeutic power of the sea. Hats are adjusted, parasols tilted, gloves cleaned of sand. Every ritual, every gesture, blends care for the body with care for reputation, merging the physical and social into a careful choreography of existence. Evening brings gentle calm. The sun dips low, painting skies in hues of amber and rose, waves reflecting the fading light like scattered gems. Families gather along the shore, sharing tea or bread, watching the tide roll in and recede. In these quiet moments, the seaside becomes more than amusement. It is a space of reflection, of reprieve from the toil of industry and urban life. Here, people witness the enduring interplay of society, nature, and personal freedom. And yet, amid the laughter and leisure, there is continuity with the past. The care with which mothers watch their children, the subtle vigilance that underpins play, the rituals of modesty and propriety, these echo the enduring human impulse to protect, to guide, to nurture, and to balance joy with duty. Across centuries, from medieval chambers to Victorian promenades, the essential human rhythms persist: love, vigilance, delight, and the ceaseless search for well-being. The seaside, for all its gaiety and novelty, is a stage where life is observed, celebrated, and gently restrained, where freedom meets expectation, and where every wave, every breeze, every laugh reminds humanity of both the fragility and the wonder of existence. The promenade hums with life. Wooden piers stretch toward the horizon, dotted with benches, lamp posts, and the occasional vendor shouting the morning's offerings. Children squeal as they chase gulls, the foam of waves tickling bare feet, laughter mingling with the rhythmic crash of the sea. The scent of salt and coal smoke drifts together, a reminder that the city's industry and the open horizon are forever entwined in the Victorian consciousness. Amusements line the shore. Donkey rides carry giggling children along the sand. Small carousels creak as they spin, painted horses bobbing up and down in slow perfection. Arcades glimmer with the promise of games and trinkets, their colors vivid against the pale backdrop of sand and sea. Ice cream vendors call out, offering cool sweetness to eager hands, the taste of fleeting luxury for the working-class families who now walk this space, once reserved for the wealthy. Here, social barriers blur, but never fully vanish. The factory worker and the clerk, the artisan and the merchant, walk side by side, their shared delight softening the divisions of the rigid Victorian hierarchy. Manners are observed, hats tipped, gloves worn, but laughter bridges the gap between classes. The seaside becomes a theater of observation and participation, where one can see the tapestry of human existence unfold, moment by moment, footstep by footstep, smile by smile. Women watch over their children carefully, balancing vigilance with amusement. The parasol shields delicate skin from sun and prying eyes alike, while the bustle of skirts and the hum of conversation provide both propriety and pleasure. Fathers toss nets into shallow waters, seeking the shimmer of small fish, their hands rough yet gentle with the children tugging at their sides. Elderly couples stroll slowly, cane tapping lightly on wood-planked piers, the rhythmic sound blending with the distant roar of surf. The sensory richness is remarkable. The coarse sand presses against bare feet, gritty and cool. The sea breeze carries both the brine of the ocean and the warmth of the sun, mingling in the lungs like a balm. The cries of gulls and the soft laughter of children form a delicate soundtrack, punctuated by the hum of conversation, the tinkle of ice cream carts, and the occasional whistle of a train arriving to deliver more visitors to this coastal stage. Evening settles in with gentle serenity. Shadows stretch long across the promenade, and the sky burns amber and rose. Families gather for tea or bread, sharing stories, recounting the day's small adventures. The waves lap steadily at the shore, each one a gentle reminder of the constancy of nature amidst the bustling activity of human life. Social interactions soften, boundaries relax, and a shared sense of community emerges, fleeting yet profound, forged in moments of laughter, play, and quiet observation. In these Victorian seaside towns, amusement is more than entertainment. It is a mirror of society, a dance of observation and participation, of propriety and indulgence, of freedom tempered by expectation. And through every laugh, every cry, every whispered instruction to a child, one can sense the enduring human longing to connect, to protect, to celebrate life's fleeting joys, and to find harmony between tradition, social duty, and the simple pleasures of being alive. The morning sun rises slowly over the Victorian shoreline, casting a golden haze across the waves. Families walk along the sands, each step deliberate yet infused with purpose, for this is not merely amusement, it is health. Doctors and social reformers alike extol the virtues of sea air, of mineral-rich waters, and of gentle exercise along the shore. The seaside, once a place of retreat for the wealthy, has become a sanctuary for body, mind, and spirit. Women, carefully veiled and shaded by parasols, stroll along the wet sand, feeling the cool foam lick their ankles. Gentle sea breezes carry not only the scent of salt but a promise of renewal. Children, barefoot and sun-kissed, run in shallow waves, their laughter ringing clear, a balm for both body and soul. Even the simplest act, walking along the tide's edge, inhaling deeply, allowing lungs to fill with briny air, is considered restorative, a preventative measure against the ills of industrial life, smog, fatigue, and the relentless grind of labor. Bathing machines still offer modest privacy, yet stepping into the cool embrace of the sea has become a ritual of rejuvenation. The ebb and flow of water against the body is more than physical. It is a symbolic cleansing, a gentle surrender to nature's rhythm. Parents watch carefully, ensuring children do not stray too far, while still allowing the freedom that fosters both courage and joy. In this careful balance of risk and protection, one witnesses a Victorian approach to wellness, deliberate, mindful, and always guided by prevailing social norms. Health manifests in subtle routines. Ice cream offers sugar-fueled energy, while walking strengthens the legs and lungs. Sitting on benches to observe the horizon provides mental clarity. The repeated sound of waves, steady and unending, lulls both body and mind into a state of calm. The seaside becomes a classroom of sensation. Sight, sound, touch, and smell all work together to cultivate well-being as families learn, through experience, the rhythms of both nature and society. Even the ordinary is elevated. Vendors peddle small remedies, mineral waters, tonics, and fragrant herbs. Advice from doctors or pamphlets reminds the visitors that wellness is an art that combines discipline, environment, and modest indulgence. The pursuit of health, intertwined with leisure, social observation, and gentle play, reflects a society that seeks control over the body while negotiating freedom of spirit. As the sun begins to lower, the golden glow of evening merges with the cool blues of incoming waves. Families retreat to promenades or nearby lodgings, their faces flushed with activity, sun, and wind. The restorative powers of the sea linger, embedded in memory, in sensation, and in the rhythmic pulse of their bodies. Victorian leisure, though constrained by etiquette, achieves a delicate harmony, pleasure, propriety, and health converging in the gentle sway of waves, in the sigh of wind through the sails, and in the soft, unspoken acknowledgement that the human body thrives when connected to the natural world. In this seaside sanctuary, the lessons are timeless. The human spirit flourishes when allowed moments of respite, when immersed in rhythm, when attuned to nature, and when joy and wellness are intertwined in a deliberate, mindful dance across sand, water, and air. Across oceans and centuries, the world shifts once again. The cobbled promenades and salty air of Victorian shores fade into memory, giving way to the vast, silent expanse of desert. Here, under the endless sky, life moves to a rhythm dictated by sun, wind, and the whispering sands. The Apache people have long known these rhythms, reading the subtle cues of earth, sky, and spirit with the attentiveness of generations. In this arid landscape, health is not merely the absence of disease. It is balance, a harmony between body and spirit, between the individual and the community, between humans and the natural world. Illness, in Apache understanding, is a disruption of this intricate equilibrium. To restore it, one must move beyond the physical symptoms, reaching into the realms of spirit and relationship, of ritual, of observation, and of care woven into the very fabric of daily life. Medicine men, revered guides and healers, move with quiet authority. They know the stories of plants, the songs of the wind, the movements of the stars. Their tools are many: herbs crushed and mixed, chants resonating in the open air, sand paintings laid carefully on the earth's surface, impermanent yet sacred. Every element holds significance, each gesture a link in a chain of restoration that encompasses more than one body. It encompasses the community, the environment, and the unseen forces that guide existence. Ceremonies unfold with deliberate attention. The rhythm of chants echoes across canyons, the scent of burning herbs mingles with the desert air, and the intricate designs of sand paintings shimmer with transient beauty. Patients lie surrounded by these symbols, enveloped in sound, color, and scent, while the medicine man works with precision and care. Each movement, each whisper, each act of observation is a step toward restoring the invisible threads that connect life, health, and harmony. In this holistic worldview, the individual is inseparable from the collective. Healing is never solitary. Community members participate, offering support, guidance, and presence. Children observe, elders advise, families watch closely, understanding that well-being is maintained through attentiveness, respect, and reciprocity. Even the smallest act, a carefully prepared herbal infusion, a whispered blessing, a gentle touch, is part of a larger choreography of care that stretches beyond the physical and into the sacred. Here, the desert itself becomes both teacher and healer. Winds carry the lessons of endurance, sun and shade remind of rhythm, sand and stone testify to impermanence. The Apache recognize these forces, living in conscious dialogue with nature, integrating every lesson into the cycles of healing, celebration, and daily life. And as night descends, painting the horizon with indigo and silver, the ceremonies draw to a gentle close. The sand paintings are dismantled, their beauty impermanent, their purpose fulfilled. The patient, surrounded by community and guided by knowledge both ancient and living, breathes slowly, gradually returning to balance. In these quiet moments, one feels the profound truth of this worldview, that health is not simply personal but relational, that life is a delicate dance of interconnected forces, and that harmony, once disturbed, can be restored through intention, care, and reverence for the natural and spiritual world. As dawn stretches over the desert, soft and golden, the Apache healer prepares. Each day begins with awareness, the wind's direction, the subtle warmth of sun on sand, the distant cry of a coyote, the rustle of brush underfoot. These signs are read with care, for they guide the healer in aligning body, spirit, and community with the natural rhythms of life. Ritual begins quietly. The patient, often lying upon woven mats or simple blankets, is enveloped in the scents of crushed herbs, sage for purification, cedar for protection, juniper to call the spirits. Each herb is chosen with intention, its role both practical and symbolic. The healer murmurs chants, melodies woven through generations, their cadence slow and deliberate, echoing across the desert canyon. Each note is both prayer and instruction, guiding unseen forces to restore balance and harmony. Sand paintings emerge, vibrant yet impermanent, intricate patterns drawn with Earth's own colors: red ochre, black charcoal, white gypsum. Each design tells a story, a visual map of spiritual pathways, of healing energies flowing through land and body. The patient's gaze is drawn to the shapes, the movement of hand upon sand, the slow, meditative unfolding of the ritual. As grains shift and change beneath the healer's fingers, one feels the transience of illness and the possibility of renewal. Herbs are also administered in precise measures, steeped into teas, or applied as poultices. Their effects are both tangible and symbolic, bridging the seen and unseen. Fever is cooled, pain is soothed, yet the act of care carries a deeper resonance. An acknowledgement of human fragility, a deliberate alignment of intention with nature, a dialogue between the body and the spirit. The ceremony is not silent. Songs rise, low and steady, words of wisdom embedded in melodic patterns, calling upon ancestors, spirits, and natural forces. The community watches, sometimes participating, offering their presence as a form of support and affirmation. Children observe attentively, learning the ways of balance. Elders nod, witnessing continuity and respect. Healing is a collective act, an interplay of observation, guidance, and energy that transcends individual experience. Time becomes fluid within this sacred space. Minutes stretch, yet they are measured in breaths, in the slow rhythm of chanting, in the movement of hand and sand. Every gesture, every utterance, every herb carries weight, weaving together the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. Illness is not a solitary affliction. It is a disruption that echoes across the network of life, and the ceremony is a restoration of equilibrium, carefully, deliberately, with reverence. As the ritual draws to a close, the sand paintings are carefully dismantled, their impermanence underscoring the transient nature of affliction. The patient breathes deeply, senses attuned, spirit rebalanced, surrounded by community and guided by the enduring wisdom of the land. In this quiet aftermath, one understands that healing is not a moment, but a process, a careful restoration of harmony between body, mind, spirit, and the living world around them. Here, in the vastness of desert silence, in the rhythm of chants and gestures, and in the fragrant earth of herbs, life regains its balance. And the observer, even at a distance, can feel the profound interconnection that underlies all healing, all care, and all persistence, the same thread of vigilance, love, and endurance that has carried humanity through centuries, from medieval chambers to bustling Victorian shores, to the sacred desert of the Apache people. The desert floor becomes a canvas. With gentle hands, the Apache healer spreads colored sands, crafting intricate designs that seem to pulse with life. Red, black, white, and yellow, drawn from Earth itself, create geometric patterns, symbols of the cosmos, guides for spirit and body alike. Each line, each shape, is deliberate, holding layers of meaning that connect patient, community, and the unseen forces of the world. Sand paintings are impermanent by design. Their fragility mirrors the transient nature of life and illness. As the ceremony unfolds, the healer's hands move rhythmically, chanting softly, guiding energy through each pattern, each curve. Patients watch attentively, their eyes tracing the intricate designs, their breaths aligning with the measured cadence of song and gesture. In these moments, the illness is not merely treated, it is acknowledged, transformed, and gently guided toward balance. The community participates in subtle ways. Elders may sit nearby, offering silent support, children observe, absorbing the rituals of continuity, and families witness the process, understanding that healing is collective. The destruction of the sand painting at the conclusion of the ceremony is not loss. It is the affirmation of impermanence, a reminder that affliction is temporary, that life flows onward, renewed and resilient. Each painting tells a story of harmony disrupted and restored, of cosmic balance mirrored in human life, of the intimate dialogue between the natural and spiritual worlds. The patterns act as guides for the patient spirit, reminders that balance is achievable, that health is a network of relations, not a solitary state. The healer's role is both mediator and guide, connecting the seen and unseen, the temporal and eternal, through each careful motion upon the sand. This impermanence resonates deeply. As the final grains are swept away, a profound silence settles. The ritual leaves no physical trace, yet its effects linger in the body, mind, and spirit of the patient. The community absorbs the lesson: nothing is permanent, yet every act of care, every gesture of intention shapes the rhythm of life and health. Through this sacred practice, one senses the deep interconnection between all things: the individual, the family, the land, the ancestors, and the cosmos. Illness, fear, and imbalance are transient. Healing, harmony, and renewal are always possible. The sand, once shaped, is returned to the earth, carrying with it the prayers, intentions, and energy of those present. In the quiet aftermath, the desert returns to its natural rhythm. The wind sweeps lightly across the sands, carrying whispers of songs, chants, and blessings. The patient rises, restored in body and spirit, while the healer watches with quiet satisfaction, knowing that balance has been realigned, if only for a time. The impermanence of the sand painting teaches a timeless lesson, that life, like healing, is a process, delicate yet enduring, fragile yet resilient, and always interwoven with the threads of community, nature, and the unseen world. And in this understanding, one finds a sense of calm, continuity, and profound connection that stretches beyond the desert, beyond culture, beyond time itself. As the desert wind settles, leaving only faint ripples in the sand, one begins to see the threads that connect human life across ages and continents. From the medieval chambers where mothers labored with midwives at their sides, to the bustling Victorian promenades where families sought restoration by the sea, to the sacred desert spaces of Apache healing, there exists a continuity, a universal rhythm of care, vigilance, and devotion. In every culture, human life is marked by fragility. Every infant, every patient, every seeker of respite carries with them both hope and vulnerability. And across time, communities have responded, creating systems of support, rituals, and practices to protect, nurture, and sustain. The medieval mother is cradled not only by her midwife, but by the collective knowledge of generations through herbs, prayers, and constant attention. The Victorian family finds in the seaside both amusement and restoration, guided by social rules, health beliefs, and the gentle discipline of observation. The Apache patient is enveloped by song, sand, and ritual, immersed in a web of relational care that encompasses body, spirit, and the environment. Across these disparate worlds, patterns emerge. Vigilance and tenderness, ritual and observation, education and guidance, all serve as responses to life's uncertainties. In each instance, human beings have sought to shape the unpredictable, to ease suffering, to promote well-being, to foster balance between the self and the larger web of relationships in which they exist. Even when methods differ, the herbs and charms of medieval Europe, the structured leisure and health practices of Victorian Britain, the sand paintings and chants of Apache healers, the underlying impulse remains the same: to act with intention, to care deeply, and to recognize the interdependence of life. Healing is never isolated. It flows outward, touching families, communities, and the environment, just as leisure and restoration ripple through generations, reinforcing the human need for rhythm, attention, and compassion. In reflecting upon these practices, one perceives a quiet continuity. Across time and space, human beings have understood that care is a dance between endurance and surrender, between structure and freedom, between ritual and observation. The midwife's hands, the Victorian mother's parasol, the healer's sand painting, all are instruments in this timeless orchestration, each shaped by culture, geography, and belief, yet each serving the same universal purpose: the preservation and nurturing of life. And in this realization, the listener is invited to breathe deeply, to sense the interwoven patterns of humanity, to understand that despite the differences in clothing, tools, language, and setting, the human heart has always sought connection, solace, and the delicate harmony between fragility and resilience. Across centuries, across continents, the rhythm of care persists, quiet yet profound, guiding life through its uncertainties and into moments of enduring balance. In the stillness between moments, one begins to perceive the invisible threads that tie together seemingly distant worlds: the medieval birthing chamber, the Victorian seaside promenade, and the sacred spaces of Apache healing. Across time and place, these are spaces of vulnerability and care, of human attention and devotion, each shaped by culture, belief, and environment. The medieval mother lies in a dimly lit room, her body weary from labor, her mind guided by midwives' hands and generations of wisdom. Her community surrounds her with prayers, herbs, and vigilance, each act of care both practical and spiritual. She is at once private in her struggle and deeply connected to the collective heartbeat of her village, every breath resonating with shared concern, hope, and tradition. Across centuries, the Victorian family steps onto the sands, their lives colored by laughter and movement, yet tempered by ritual and propriety. The seaside becomes a stage where the individual's joy intersects with social observation, where leisure is a careful dance of freedom within expectation. Here too, there is communal rhythm, children learning, parents guiding, neighbors observing, and the natural world providing both sensory delight and restorative energy. The human impulse to nurture, protect, and connect continues, subtly transformed by technology, societal norms, and the promise of health. Farther still, in the open desert, the Apache healer kneels over a sand painting, the patient enveloped in song, fragrance, and ritual. Here, care transcends the individual, extending into community, spirit, and environment. Healing is a shared act, mediated by generations of accumulated knowledge, where each gesture, chant, and herbal remedy contributes to restoring harmony. The impermanence of the sand painting reminds all present that life is fluid, that illness is transient, and that balance can always be reclaimed. Across these three landscapes, the commonality is profound. The human spirit seeks to honor life through attentiveness, ritual, and shared participation. Care is both intimate and communal, blending practical action with spiritual awareness. Life is fragile, yet resilience is cultivated through relationships, knowledge, and cultural continuity. The rhythms of birth, leisure, and healing echo one another: preparation, attention, guidance, observation, and reflection. Each moment carries lessons, not only for those directly involved but for the broader community and generations to come. As the sun sets in each scene, the flickering hearth, the golden seaside, the desert horizon, a sense of continuity emerges. Life, in all its vulnerability, is marked by devotion and vigilance. Joy and care are inseparable, ritual and spontaneity entwined, the personal and the communal forever intertwined. The listener, drifting in this narrative, can sense the echo of these truths within themselves. the enduring human capacity to nurture, to connect, and to seek balance in an ever-changing world. And in this quiet reflection, one feels a profound serenity. Across centuries, across landscapes, across cultures, the essence of care persists, timeless and universal, whispering the enduring story of human resilience, compassion, and the delicate, beautiful dance of life itself. As the flickering candlelight of the medieval chamber illuminates the rough-hewn walls, a different kind of ritual unfolds, a rite as old as society itself, yet steeped in mystery, expectation, and law. The wedding night is not simply a private encounter. It is a communal, legal, and spiritual act, where the threads of family, property, and faith converge. The bride, adorned in modest finery, enters a chamber thick with incense, her heart a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Around her, witnesses may be present, sometimes discreetly, sometimes openly, for in these moments, society observes the fulfillment of contract and custom. The consummation of marriage is not merely an intimate act. It is proof, validation, and seal of the union. Fertility, legitimacy, and the transfer of property all intertwine with the delicate rhythms of human intimacy. Midwives or elder women may offer guidance, whispering instructions that blend practical knowledge with spiritual significance. Herbs for calm, prayers for safety, charms for fertility, all mark the delicate interface of superstition, faith, and the pressing realities of medieval life. The room is heavy with layered meanings. Every gesture, every word, every touch resonates far beyond the personal, echoing through family lines and community expectations. The night is governed by vigilance and care. While passion may awaken, it is tempered by ritual, propriety, and the persistent awareness of legal and social consequences. The union is witnessed not just for human eyes, but for spiritual acknowledgement, for the blessing of saints, and for the affirmation of societal norms. The private becomes public, and in this overlap, the bride and groom are guided by centuries of tradition, balancing desire with duty, intimacy with obligation. For the wider community, the wedding night confirms continuity. Children will come, lineage will extend, and property and honor will remain within proper channels. Every element, the words spoken, the actions performed, the prayers uttered, serves to link the individual to a larger structure, to bind personal experience with communal responsibility. In this way, intimacy becomes an instrument of social order, a delicate weaving of human passion, spiritual observance, and legal necessity. Yet within this strict framework lies tenderness and human vulnerability. The bride and groom navigate uncertainty, fear, and expectation together, finding moments of connection amidst ritual. The room, though charged with social and legal weight, is also a space where two individuals begin a journey, their lives interlaced with shared duty, hope, and the possibilities of love. As candles gutter and night deepens, the chamber quiets. Outside, the village rests under starlit skies. The echoes of ceremony, law, and faith linger, leaving an imprint that reaches beyond the moment. In the hush, one can sense the continuity of human care, of ritual, and of the delicate balance between personal experience and communal structure, a rhythm that, like the tides or the desert wind, endures across centuries. The labor concludes, yet the journey of motherhood in the medieval world is far from complete. In dimly lit chambers, the new mother rests wearily, her body still heavy with the exertion of childbirth. Her breath comes in uneven waves, her skin flushed and damp, the room redolent with herbs, oils, and the faint smoke of candles. There is little comfort beyond the presence of midwives and experienced women, whose vigilance becomes both shield and guide. Postpartum care is minimal, yet deeply ritualized. The mother is tended with poultices, gentle baths, and the whispered prayers of women who have traversed the same path countless times before. Every action carries purpose: warmth to restore the body, herbs to strengthen it, silence and observation to ensure that life is safeguarded. In these quiet acts, one perceives the extraordinary resilience required, each mother both fragile and enduring, navigating the delicate transition from labor to renewed vitality. The newborn, often swaddled tightly in linen, lies beside its mother, fragile and susceptible. Midwives supervise carefully, ensuring that the infant breathes, feeds, and survives the early hours. Baptism may be hastened, not simply as a matter of faith, but as a ritual safeguarding the child's soul against the precarious uncertainties of life. Stillbirths, heartbreakingly frequent, are handled with solemnity, prayers, and the acknowledgement of the tenuous boundary between presence and absence, life and loss. The community plays an essential, though silent, role. Neighbors may bring food, herbs, or offerings, their presence a web of support that binds mother, child, and village together. Instruction is passed on, dietary restrictions, careful handling of the infant, and ways to restore strength. Each gesture, no matter how small, carries weight, forming a tapestry of collective care that sustains both body and spirit. Yet even in this structured support, danger looms. Infection, hemorrhage, exhaustion, these are constant companions, reminding all present of the fragility of life. And yet, in the endurance of the mother, in the attentiveness of the midwife, and in the subtle guidance of communal wisdom, there emerges a quiet triumph. Life continues, resilience manifests, and the cycle of birth and care persists, echoing the timeless rhythms of human existence. The chamber is a place of transformation. Pain and fatigue mingle with hope and vigilance. Each heartbeat, each breath, each gentle movement underscores the delicate interplay of human fragility and enduring strength. In these moments, one senses the profound courage inherent in motherhood, the extraordinary capacity to endure, to nurture, and to sustain life against uncertainty and risk. As night deepens and the mother finally rests, enveloped by the care of others, there is a stillness that is both physical and spiritual. Here, in the intimate dance of care, observation, and resilience, the medieval household becomes a sanctuary of life's continuity. The rhythm of birth, survival, and nurturing persists, a testament to the enduring human capacity to safeguard life through attentiveness, ritual, and unwavering dedication. As the sun dips slowly toward the horizon, casting warm amber and rose across the sands, Victorian seaside towns take on a tranquil, reflective air. The bustle of midday, the laughter of children, the clatter of carousels, the calls of vendors, softens into a rhythm of gentle conversation and quiet observation. Families gather along promenades, benches creaking under weight, parasols folded and resting at their sides, while the sea murmurs its unending, soothing song. Evening walks become a cherished ritual. Couples stroll arm in arm, hats tilted, gloves adorned, each movement a careful balance of propriety and quiet intimacy. Children, still restless with energy, run in shorter bursts, toes brushing against the damp sand, until the fading light beckons them to the warmth of their families. The sea, painted in deep indigo and silver streaks, reflects the dying sun, a mirror for contemplation and shared moments of quietude. The atmosphere is layered with sensory subtleties. The cool breeze carries the scent of salt and seaweed. The gentle lapping of waves harmonizes with soft conversations. Distant whistles of trains returning home punctuate the rhythm. Vendors begin to pack away their carts, yet the memory of their music and the sweet taste of ice cream lingers, a gentle reminder of the day's simple joys. Each sound, each scent, each touch contributes to a collective sense of well-being, a subtle weaving of social connection and personal reflection. Families gather for small meals on the promenade or in nearby lodgings. Bread, tea, and preserves are shared in quiet companionship, punctuated by laughter and the occasional exclamation of delight. Stories are told of the day's minor adventures, a daring wave that drenched a child, a donkey ride that ended in giggles, a friendly encounter on the pier. These shared recollections reinforce bonds, bridging generations, and creating a subtle continuity between activity, memory, and reflection. The seaside, in this gentle hour, becomes both a classroom and a sanctuary. Children learn the rhythms of nature, parents observe and guide, and elders reflect on the continuity of life and social expectation. The evening light softens the sharp distinctions of class and social hierarchy, if only for a few fleeting hours, allowing families to inhabit a shared space of calm and quiet delight. As darkness deepens, lamps flicker along promenades, casting golden circles on cobblestones and wood. Families slowly retreat to lodgings or carriages, their bodies warmed by activity, their minds soothed by the steady pulse of the sea. In these moments, the human impulse for leisure converges with the pursuit of well-being, a reflection on the restorative power of environment, ritual, and community, a gentle embrace of both the present and the timeless rhythms that connect human life to the natural world. And in the stillness that follows, the hush of waves, the distant echo of footsteps, the calm of bodies preparing for rest, one feels the quiet, enduring lesson of the Victorian seaside, that pleasure and reflection, amusement and care are inseparable, that human life, even within strict social codes, seeks balance, rejuvenation, and shared experience. As darkness settles over the seaside town, a quiet serenity blankets the streets and shore. Lanterns glow softly along promenades, casting gentle light upon cobblestones dampened by evening tides. Families retreat to lodgings, their bodies tired from the day's activities, their spirits lifted by the rhythmic pulse of waves and wind. Here, in these moments of transition from activity to rest, the Victorians imbue their routines with intention, guided by both belief and tradition. Health, in the Victorian worldview, is cultivated not only through daytime exertion and seaside air, but also through structured routines that ensure proper rest. Children are tucked into beds lined with crisp linens, their cheeks flushed with play, their minds soothed by gentle stories or lullabies. Parents, aware of the benefits of early rest, attend to small details: a warm footbath, the measured flicker of candlelight, the placement of herbal sachets intended to calm nerves and foster sleep. Even the air itself is considered medicinal, moist, bracing, carrying minerals that soothe the lungs and invigorate the spirit. Nighttime walks, though rare, are sometimes taken by those seeking a final restorative breath of sea air. Couples may step onto quiet piers or along moonlit sands, listening to the whisper of waves, the distant call of night birds, the gentle sigh of wind threading through empty streets. These acts, though simple, reflect a deeply held belief in the interconnectedness of environment, body, and mind. That immersion in nature, even in fleeting moments, promotes equilibrium and prepares both body and spirit for restorative sleep. Meals in the evening are modest, intentionally light to encourage comfort and digestion. Tea and small morsels are consumed in quiet conversation, each sip and bite part of a careful orchestration of health. Children learn, through observation and gentle instruction, the rhythms of the body and the necessity of routine. Adults, too, are reminded of the subtle pleasures of pause and reflection, a glance toward the starlit horizon, a breath of briny air, a shared story. The connection between leisure, observation, and care becomes evident as night deepens. Sleep is understood as both restoration and protection, a daily ritual that reinforces the lessons of the day, the balance of exertion and calm, of sunlight and shadow, of play and stillness. By observing these rhythms, families nurture health not as an abstract concept, but as a lived, tactile experience, imbued with the tangible and intangible influences of the seaside. Even as the town quiets and waves continue their endless conversation with the shore, the human impulse for rhythm, attention, and care persists. Parents reflect on the day, children drift into dreams, and the communal bond of shared experience leaves a subtle, enduring impression. The seaside, at night, becomes more than a location. It is a sanctuary where wellness, reflection, and social continuity merge, preparing body and spirit alike for the coming day. In the hush of Victorian night, one senses a universal truth, that life's endurance is fostered not only by work and effort, but by reflection, ritual, and the mindful cultivation of rest, a lesson as resonant now as it was across the sands and shores of history. As the last lanterns of the Victorian seaside flicker into quiet darkness, one can imagine a shift in landscape, culture, and philosophy, moving from cobblestone promenades to the vast, undulating deserts of the American Southwest. Though separated by centuries and continents, the human desire for restoration, care, and balance reveals itself in striking continuity. Where Victorian families sought health through structured leisure, fresh sea air, and gentle routine, the Apache sought wellness through communal harmony, ritual, and spiritual alignment with the natural world. The lessons of the seaside and the desert converge in subtle ways. Both acknowledge that health is relational, that the body cannot be wholly separated from its environment, and that well-being flows from patterns of attentiveness, observation, and ritualized practice. Victorian routines, meals timed for digestion, evening walks to breathe the mineral-rich air, rest structured around light and sound, mirror, in principle, the Apache rituals where herbs, chants, and sand paintings create a framework for physical, spiritual, and communal equilibrium. In Apache philosophy, the balance sought in Victorian leisure is understood as part of a more encompassing worldview. Illness is a disturbance not only within the individual but within the community, the land, and the cosmic order. Healing is therefore collective, participatory, and deeply intertwined with observation of natural rhythms, sunrise and sunset, wind patterns, seasonal cycles. The same attentiveness that guided families along promenades or monitored the tides for recreation is amplified and sanctified in Apache ceremonies, where every gesture is intentional and every sound carries spiritual resonance. Community forms the axis of care in both contexts. In Victorian towns, families and neighbors subtly reinforced health norms through observation and shared routines. In Apache practice, care extends further into spiritual guidance, ritualized acts, and the participation of all present, emphasizing that the well-being of one is inseparable from the balance of many. Both demonstrate that human flourishing is never entirely private. It is woven into social structures, cultural knowledge, and the subtle cadence of environment and habit. Even the tools differ, yet their purpose converges. Bathing machines, parasols, and scheduled walks serve to preserve health, modesty, and propriety, just as sand paintings, chants, and herbal remedies guide energy, focus intention, and restore harmony. Each culture translates the human impulse to protect, restore, and nurture into forms suited to its world. One structured by societal norms and technology, the other shaped by spiritual cosmology and intimate dialogue with nature. As night deepens across both landscapes, a meditative truth emerges, that human life is sustained not merely by physical action, but by attention, care, and the weaving of rituals into daily existence. The rhythms of leisure, recovery, and healing, whether marked by the lapping of ocean waves or the whispering of desert winds, illuminate the universality of human concern for balance, resilience, and continuity. And in this quiet contemplation, the listener may sense the continuity of human endeavor. Across eras, across environments, across beliefs, the impulse to nurture, restore, and harmonize life persists, echoing softly from cobbled shores to sunlit deserts, bridging past and present, body and spirit, individual and community. In the heart of the desert, where horizons stretch endlessly and the sun casts shadows that move like living brushstrokes, Apache healing ceremonies unfold as acts of profound interconnectedness. Unlike the private routines of Victorian families or the labor-intensive vigilance of medieval mothers, these rituals are inherently communal, weaving together the lives, spirits, and energies of all who participate. The ceremony begins long before the patient arrives. Elders prepare sacred spaces, laying mats, arranging herbs, and drawing the first outlines of sand paintings. Each preparation is deliberate, guided by knowledge passed down through generations, each action steeped in purpose and respect. Families and neighbors gather, not as passive observers but as active participants, offering presence, intention, and support. Their collective energy amplifies the power of ritual, creating a field of attention and care that surrounds the patient like a protective embrace. Songs rise in soft, measured tones. Chants, rhythmic and deliberate, are taught and repeated, their vibrations carrying both spiritual significance and calming resonance. The healer, often a medicine man, guides each participant, coordinating movement, words, and energy, ensuring that the communal focus remains aligned with the goal of restoring balance. Every whisper, every gesture, every shared breath reinforces the interconnectedness of individual health and community well-being. Herbs, sacred and practical, are distributed with intention. Juniper, sage, and other local plants are administered in teas, poultices, or burned to release their aroma. The scent itself is considered part of the healing, a bridge between the physical and spiritual, between body and environment. Children watch and learn, absorbing lessons of vigilance and care, while elders ensure that each step honors tradition and continuity. The patient, though central to the ceremony, is enveloped in a network of attention that spans generations. Healing in this context is not a singular act. It is a dialogue between body and spirit, patient and healer, individual and community, earth and sky. Each participant contributes, whether through song, observation, offering, or quiet presence. The disruption of illness is acknowledged, transformed, and gradually harmonized with the flow of life. The ceremony embodies a principle that resonates across all cultures. Wellness is relational, cultivated through connection, attention, and shared purpose. As the ritual draws to a close, sand paintings are dismantled, their impermanence emphasizing the transient nature of imbalance and affliction. Yet the lessons endure. Families leave with renewed awareness, children carry knowledge forward, and the community is reminded that health is a collective responsibility, nurtured through sustained attention, care, and ritualized practice. In this quiet desert stillness, one sees the continuity of human endeavor to preserve life, balance, and connection. Whether through Victorian seaside walks, medieval postpartum vigilance, or Apache communal ceremonies, the essence is the same. Human beings, across time and space, recognize that survival, restoration, and resilience are sustained not in isolation, but in the delicate, enduring web of relationship, intention, and care. Within the quietude of the desert, as shadows stretch across the sands and the first hints of twilight touch distant mesas, the ritual of Apache healing finds its rhythm in song and chant. Here, music is not mere decoration or entertainment. It is a vessel, a conduit through which energy, intention, and communal focus flow. Every note, every measured syllable, carries meaning, shaping the atmosphere and aligning the hearts and minds of all present. Chants begin softly, almost imperceptibly, weaving a delicate tapestry of sound that threads through the patient, the healer, and the assembled family and neighbors. Repetition deepens concentration, invoking ancestral knowledge, spiritual protection, and the subtle harmonies of the natural world. The cadence of voices mirrors the pulse of life itself, steady, measured, and resonant, reminding all participants of the continuity of existence and the interconnectedness of all living things. Music here serves multiple purposes. It calms the patient, centering attention on the present moment, guiding breath and heartbeat into alignment. It focuses the healer, allowing for precise timing of gestures, movements, and herbal applications. And it binds the community, creating a shared rhythm in which individual presence amplifies collective energy. Each voice, each beat of percussion, each wind chime or rattle contributes to a resonance that is simultaneously practical, symbolic, and profoundly spiritual. The patterns of chant are often derived from generations of observation and experience. Specific tones, intervals, and rhythms correspond to particular ailments, spiritual imbalances, or cosmic forces. The healer moves within this musical framework, orchestrating the flow of energy, guiding the patient's attention, and invoking protective spirits. The sounds rise and fall, building tension and releasing it, mirroring the journey from imbalance to harmony. Children observe, their eyes wide, learning the subtleties of cadence, posture, and intent. Elders nod, affirming the continuity of tradition. Families, through presence and occasional participation, strengthen the communal field of energy, reinforcing the principle that healing is never solitary. The desert itself seems to listen, the wind carrying the vibrations across open spaces, as though the earth itself joins in the chorus of restoration. In these moments, one recognizes the universality of music as a tool for focus, meditation, and communal cohesion. Across cultures, from the lullabies sung to Victorian children to the chants accompanying medieval rituals, human beings have long understood the power of sound to guide, soothe, and heal. In Apache practice, this understanding is heightened, woven seamlessly into a ritual that integrates mind, body, spirit, and community. As the final notes fade and silence settles, a profound calm remains. The patient feels the subtle shift within themselves, the community feels the cohesion of shared purpose, and the healer senses the restoration of balance. Music, in this sacred context, has done more than fill the air. It has aligned, harmonized, and guided the flow of life, reminding all present that sound is both a tool and a teacher, a bridge between the human, the spiritual, and the natural. In the heart of the desert, where the soil is dry yet fertile with hidden vitality, Apache healers prepare a symphony of tactile remedies. Herbs, gathered with care and profound respect for the land, form the backbone of practical healing, connecting the physical body with spiritual equilibrium. Each plant, from fragrant sage to juniper and desert willow, carries both a physiological effect and a symbolic resonance, bridging the seen and unseen, the tangible and sacred. The preparation of remedies is itself ritual. Leaves are crushed between fingers, releasing aromatic oils that mingle with the warm desert air. Powders are carefully measured, mixed with water or earth, or burned to produce purifying smoke. Each gesture is intentional, deliberate, and precise, guided by ancestral knowledge and deep observation of the natural world. The hands of the healer move with calm assurance, translating generations of wisdom into tactile actions that heal and protect. Herbs serve multiple purposes: soothing fevers, calming nerves, cleansing the body, or reinforcing spiritual defenses. Their application is a dialogue between patient and healer. Poultices are pressed gently onto aching muscles, teas are sipped with mindful attention, and inhalations of smoke invite calm and focus. Every touch communicates care, presence, and intention, reinforcing the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit. Sand, too, becomes a tactile medium of healing. The intricate patterns drawn in carefully layered grains guide attention, focus energy, and symbolize cosmic balance. Patients may kneel or sit, tracing lines or observing the evolving designs, engaging physically as well as spiritually. The ephemeral nature of sand paintings reminds all that healing is a process, fluid, impermanent, and continuous, requiring both patience and attentiveness. The involvement of the community amplifies the power of these tactile interventions. Family members hold hands, offer supportive gestures, or assist in the placement of herbal poultices. Each touch reinforces relational bonds, embedding healing within a network of care that is social as well as physical. In these acts, the line between medicine and ritual blurs, creating an experience that addresses body, mind, and spirit simultaneously. Even the simple act of smelling, touching, or stirring herbs carries significance. Aromas awaken memory and intention, textures anchor attention, and the warmth of a hand conveys empathy that no words can capture. The senses themselves become instruments of care, attuning the patient to the rhythms of healing and connecting them with the natural and spiritual order. Through herbs, touch, and the careful orchestration of ritual, Apache healing transforms the physical environment into a sanctuary. Life is approached holistically, where illness is understood as imbalance, and wellness emerges from the harmonization of body, spirit, community, and land. In this tactile practice, one sees not only the ingenuity of human survival but the profound wisdom of cultures that recognize the intimate links between nature, ritual, and human resilience. On the desert floor, where sun and shadow dance across the grains of sand, a healer begins the delicate task of creating a sand painting. Each gesture is precise, each color deliberate, each line a bridge between the human and the sacred, the temporal and the eternal. In these fleeting artworks, one finds a profound philosophy of life, illness, and restoration. Sand paintings are never mere decoration. They are sacred diagrams, maps of cosmic balance, visual prayers that guide energy and intention toward harmony. Colors symbolize forces of nature, spiritual entities, and aspects of human existence, carefully layered to convey meaning both visible and subtle. The patient is often seated within or beside the design, absorbing its symbolic guidance, participating in the ritual through observation, meditation, and gesture. Impermanence is central to the power of the sand painting. Unlike paintings on canvas or walls, these creations are meant to be temporary, dissolved, or swept away upon the completion of the ceremony. This transience carries profound significance, illness, like the painting, is understood as temporary, a disturbance that can be healed and returned to balance. By witnessing and participating in the creation and dissolution, the patient and community internalize a worldview where nothing remains static, where disruption is part of a larger, cyclical process. The tactile nature of the sand painting enhances its effectiveness. Patients may feel the texture beneath their fingers, observe the careful placement of grains, or follow patterns with their eyes. Every sensory interaction anchors attention, reinforcing mindfulness and focus. The act of creation itself is a form of meditation for the healer, whose hands channel knowledge, intention, and spiritual presence into the design. Sand paintings are also educational, transmitting knowledge through symbolism. Children and observers learn about cosmic forces, the principles of balance, and the values of patience, care, and attentiveness. Through this artistic practice, the community itself becomes a living participant in wellness, observing and internalizing lessons that sustain health beyond the immediate ritual. When the ceremony concludes, the sand is gently removed, brushed away, returning the ground to its natural state. Yet the energy, intention, and understanding cultivated through the process remain. The impermanence is not loss. It is a reminder of the flow of life, the ephemeral nature of illness, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit when guided by care, ritual, and knowledge. Through sand, color, and gesture, Apache healing conveys profound truths that wellness is relational, balance is dynamic, and life is a continuous interplay between creation, observation, and release. It is a philosophy lived through the hands and hearts of those who engage, offering timeless lessons for all who witness, participate, and reflect. As the ceremony reaches its zenith, the elements of Apache healing, song, sand, and herbs merge into a seamless dance of intention, attention, and restoration. Each component, powerful on its own, finds its fullest meaning in integration, creating a multidimensional experience that envelopes the patient, the healer, and the gathered community. Chants rise in measured cadence, voices harmonizing in a rhythm that echoes the natural world. Each syllable carries spiritual energy, focusing intention and guiding awareness. The healer moves with precision, tracing lines in the sand painting, adjusting patterns, and ensuring that the visual narrative mirrors the energetic flow of the chant. The sand responds to these gestures, becoming a living map of balance, impermanence, and cosmic harmony. Herbs, fragrant and potent, are applied or burned to complement the auditory and visual elements. The aroma permeates the space, stimulating the senses, calming the mind, and opening channels of receptivity. The patient inhales deeply, absorbing the qualities of each plant, while hands of family or neighbors may gently touch, hold, or support, reinforcing relational care. Each action, however subtle, strengthens the flow of energy and the restoration of equilibrium. The integration of song, sand, and herbs exemplifies the holistic nature of Apache healing. Body, spirit, and community are engaged simultaneously. The physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions are addressed not in isolation but in dynamic interplay. The patient is not a passive recipient but an active participant, their focus guided through sensory experience, meditation, and ritual action. Observation, attentiveness, and intention are as critical as the materials themselves. The healer reads subtle shifts, the patient's breathing, posture, and responses, the resonance of voices in the space, the alignment of sand with spiritual energy. Adjustments are made in real time, demonstrating an intimate knowledge of both technique and spirit, a mastery that blends experience, wisdom, and empathy. As the final notes of song fade and the sand painting is gently dismantled, a quiet energy remains. The room or open desert feels lighter, the community more aligned, and the patient attuned to a renewed balance. Herbs continue to work subtly, scents lingering, reinforcing calm and vitality. In this orchestration of sight, sound, scent, and touch, healing transcends the physical, becoming an experience of communion, mindfulness, and profound relational care. Here, the listener can sense the enduring principle: wellness is cultivated through integration, through attentive engagement with multiple dimensions of experience, and through the mindful weaving of community, ritual, and nature. Apache healing, in its holistic elegance, offers a window into the timeless human endeavor to restore balance, honor life, and participate in the sacred rhythms of existence. As the desert wind stills, the ocean waves recede into gentle whispers, and the candlelight of medieval chambers flickers in memory, one begins to perceive a thread woven through time, culture, and human experience, a continuity of care, resilience, and attentiveness that transcends era, geography, and circumstance. Medieval mothers, enduring the relentless demands of pregnancy and childbirth, demonstrate courage and fortitude, their survival dependent upon midwives' skill, communal support, and ritualized knowledge passed through generations. Victorian families, seeking renewal along sunlit promenades, orchestrate routines of leisure, reflection, and restorative sleep, guided by observation, propriety, and emerging scientific understanding. Apache healers, immersed in the vast desert, employ chants, sand, and herbs to restore balance, harmonizing body, spirit, and community in a dynamic, relational practice. Across these disparate worlds, the common currents emerge: attention to the body, care for others, the mindful use of environment, and the integration of ritual to structure human life. In each case, healing, restoration, and continuity rely not solely on individual effort but on the careful orchestration of social, spiritual, and physical resources. Community serves as both support and mirror, reflecting shared responsibility, knowledge, and love. One can imagine a medieval chamber, the midwife's hands steady on a mother's abdomen, prayers whispered in rhythm with the heartbeat of the newborn. Across centuries, one sees a Victorian family strolling along a moonlit promenade, inhaling sea air and absorbing the rhythms of sand and surf, ritualized care embedded in leisure. And in the desert, one witnesses the patient seated among swirling sand, inhaling herbal fragrances, listening to chants, sensing the careful alignment of energy and intention orchestrated by a healer surrounded by family and neighbors. Though the tools, languages, and philosophies differ, the essence is shared. Human life is fragile and precious, requiring vigilance, attentiveness, and ritualized care. Knowledge is handed down, observed, and enacted, and every action, however subtle, carries significance. Across cultures, humans recognize that resilience is cultivated not in isolation but through connection, observation, and deliberate engagement with the rhythms of existence. As the listener drifts into sleep, these images, though distant in space and time, converge into a meditation on continuity. The fragility of life, the necessity of communal support, the restorative power of environment, and the enduring capacity for care echo softly, threading through the mind as a lullaby of human perseverance. One senses the enduring truth that across eras, societies, and landscapes, the pursuit of balance, well-being, and connection remains a defining rhythm of the human experience. In this quiet reflection, the listener is invited to rest within a continuum of care, to absorb the gentle wisdom of countless generations, and to recognize that in every culture, in every practice, and in every act of attentiveness, there exists a timeless dedication to life's preservation, harmony, and enduring resilience. As the morning sun rises over the desert horizon, spilling warm amber across the sands, the teachings of Apache healing extend beyond ritual into the cadence of daily life. Here, health is not confined to ceremonies or sacred spaces. It permeates every action, every breath, and every relationship. To live well is to remain in harmony with one's body, one's spirit, one's community, and the land that sustains them. The day begins with mindful attention, simple tasks performed deliberately, every movement imbued with awareness. Water is fetched and carried with gratitude, food is prepared with intention, and herbs are gathered with respect for the life that sustains them. Even routine chores, sweeping, arranging, or walking, become meditative acts, reinforcing balance and aligning one with the rhythms of nature. Each gesture, small though it may seem, carries spiritual weight, reflecting a worldview where the sacred and mundane are inseparable. Families play a central role in sustaining these principles. Children learn not through textbooks alone, but by observing elders, participating in preparation of meals, and assisting with the care of the sick or the young. Responsibility, empathy, and attentiveness are taught as daily practices, not abstract lessons. The boundaries between personal care and communal care blur, reinforcing the understanding that the well-being of one is inseparable from the well-being of all. Herbs, songs, and the remembrance of sand painting patterns permeate everyday interactions. A simple herbal infusion for colds, a whispered chant before setting out on a journey, or a story of ancestral practice at dawn or dusk, each act reflects continuity, teaching that health and spiritual balance are cultivated moment by moment. Observation remains central, noting changes in the environment, listening to the subtle messages of the body, and responding with care and intention. In reflection, parallels emerge with Victorian and medieval practices. The Victorian family's structured routines of sleep, nourishment, and seaside leisure echo the Apache emphasis on rhythm, attention, and environmental attunement. Medieval mothers, enduring pregnancy and childbirth, relied on rituals, communal support, and the guidance of experienced women, echoing the relational, attentive focus of Apache life. Across these contexts, whether in desert, seaside, or chamber, the principle is clear. Human well-being is nurtured through mindful integration of daily acts, community support, and intentional connection to the rhythms of life. The spiritual philosophy of Apache healing, when extended into daily life, reveals the subtle power of continuity. Health is never an isolated condition. It is a flowing, responsive, relational state. By embedding ritual, observation, and care into ordinary acts, individuals cultivate resilience, awareness, and equilibrium. It is a reminder that every gesture, whether tending a child, preparing a meal, or walking beneath the sun, can become an expression of harmony, reverence, and the enduring human pursuit of balance. As the desert heat rises and the day unfolds, the listener can sense the quiet meditation embedded in these routines, that the sacred exists not only in ceremony but in every mindful act, every interaction, and every heartbeat aligned with the flow of life. Through these practices, across time and culture, the wisdom of attentive care continues to resonate, guiding body, spirit, and community toward lasting harmony. Across the sweep of centuries, from medieval halls to Victorian promenades, and from Apache desert dwellings to contemporary life, the centrality of family in sustaining health, ritual, and continuity becomes unmistakably clear. Each culture, in its own way, invests ordinary acts with significance, creating rhythms and practices that nurture both body and spirit. In the medieval world, family life was intertwined with survival. Mothers, even in the throes of exhaustion from childbirth, were central to the household's physical and emotional continuity. Rituals surrounding birth, baptism, and early child rearing were embedded with spiritual meaning. Midwives, relatives, and neighbors participated actively, offering counsel, assistance, and prayers. Every gesture, from washing the newborn to reciting protective charms, was laden with intention, ensuring that life, frail and vulnerable, was given the best chance to endure. These rituals shaped not only survival but the moral and spiritual education of children, embedding values, beliefs, and the social fabric into the earliest experiences of life. By contrast, Victorian families, buffered by advances in infrastructure and medicine, approached care through structured leisure, diet, and rest. Seaside holidays became more than entertainment. They were exercises in the cultivation of health, observation, and attentiveness. Parents guided children in routines, imparted knowledge about hygiene, propriety, and behavior, and modeled reflection through quiet walks, meals, and evening rituals. Family engagement was deliberate and communal, a conscious weaving of activity, care, and observation that reinforced social bonds and personal well-being. In Apache life, family care is similarly pervasive, yet intimately tied to spiritual philosophy. The daily attentiveness of children and elders mirrors the observation and ritualized care seen in Victorian and medieval contexts. Gathering herbs, assisting in rituals, observing health practices, or offering support during illness are all ordinary acts elevated into meaningful participation. Each family member's contribution reinforces community cohesion, collective responsibility, and spiritual awareness. Health is understood as inseparable from connection to land, ancestors, and one another, so daily interactions themselves become sacred practice. What emerges across these cultures is a shared principle. The family serves as the crucible in which survival, wellness, and continuity are cultivated. Ritual, observation, and attentiveness are the mechanisms through which knowledge, care, and values are transmitted. The medieval midwives' council, the Victorian mother's evening guidance, and the Apache elders' teaching each reflect the profound human recognition that life is fragile and must be nurtured through structured engagement, shared responsibility, and mindful presence. Even in quiet moments, the tending of a fire, the preparation of a meal, the telling of a story, these practices impart lessons of resilience, attentiveness, and continuity. Families, across time and culture, become living networks of care, their routines and rituals silently transmitting wisdom, reinforcing social bonds, and sustaining the delicate equilibrium of body, mind, and spirit. In this continuum, the listener may drift into a gentle understanding that every act of care, every attentive gesture, and every shared ritual is a thread woven into the fabric of human survival, a reminder that well-being is relational, deliberate, and enduring. Across the shifting landscapes of history, human resilience has often been shaped not only by individual fortitude but by the intricate interplay between environment, ritual, and care. In the medieval village, the hearth's warmth, the stone walls, and the rhythms of agrarian life formed the backdrop against which families navigated the fragility of existence. The air, thick with smoke from fires and scents of herbs, carried both sustenance and protection, framing rituals of birth, health, and nourishment that anchored community and family life. Victorian society, in contrast, consciously manipulated environment to promote well-being. The seaside became a carefully curated landscape, a space where the rhythms of nature, tides, sea breezes, sunlight, were harmonized with human routines. Walks along promenades, bathing rituals in machines, and the deliberate structuring of leisure hours reinforced health, decorum, and social cohesion. The environment was not merely a backdrop, it was an active participant, shaping behavior, observation, and the cultivation of resilience through attentiveness and structured engagement. In Apache life, environment and ritual are inseparable. The desert, mesas, and canyons are not neutral spaces, they are living participants in daily life and healing practices. The wind, sun, and shifting sands are observed, respected, and engaged with purpose. Herbs are gathered in precise locations, chants resonate in alignment with natural acoustics, and sand paintings mirror the rhythms of sky, land, and cosmic order. The environment itself shapes the flow of ritual, directing attention, focus, and intention toward restoring harmony and sustaining health. Across all three contexts, resilience emerges as a relational phenomenon. It is nurtured not in isolation but through attentive engagement with the surrounding world, whether it be the domestic hearth, the carefully organized Victorian promenade, or the sacred desert. Ritual provides the structure within which care is enacted, observation is trained, and lessons are transmitted. Care becomes a practice embedded in space and rhythm, where the environment amplifies, sustains, and guides the flow of human attention and energy. These lessons remind us that human beings are not merely passive inhabitants of space but active participants in the cultivation of well-being. Observation, intentional action, and ritualized interaction with surroundings create continuity, stability, and the capacity to endure. Every gesture, preparing herbs, walking along the shore, tending a hearth, is both an act of care and an engagement with the forces that shape life. In quiet meditation, the listener can feel this continuum, that resilience is cultivated through attentive presence, through ritualized engagement with environment and community, and through the deliberate nurturing of body, mind, and spirit. From medieval chambers to Victorian promenades to Apache deserts, the interplay of environment, ritual, and care weaves a tapestry of human survival, reminding us that well-being is a living dialogue between place, action, and intention, a rhythm echoed across time and culture. Across time and culture, one principle unites the practices of survival, care, and restoration. Attentive observation. In the medieval household, mothers, midwives, and neighbors watched carefully for subtle signs of distress. The rise or fall of a mother's pulse, the infant's cry, or the pallor of a newborn could signify life or death. Observation was not passive. It was active, intuitive, and deeply relational. Every detail mattered, every gesture was interpreted, and every shared piece of wisdom could mean the difference between survival and loss. Victorian families, in their turn, cultivated attentiveness through structured routines and deliberate engagement with the environment. Strolling along promenades, watching the movement of tides, noting the weather, and attending to the physical and emotional states of family members became daily practices of care. Parents guided children to notice their surroundings, to reflect on the effects of sun, sea air, and exercise, and to integrate observation into the rhythms of life. This mindfulness, though framed by propriety and social convention, cultivated awareness, balance, and resilience. In Apache culture, observation is elevated to a central philosophy of life. Attention to the body, community, and natural environment informs all action. Healers observe breathing patterns, shifts in posture, and subtle emotional cues. Families note changes in the weather, the growth of herbs, and the behavior of animals, integrating these observations into both practical survival and spiritual guidance. Attentiveness is a practice of connection, aligning human action with cosmic, communal, and ecological rhythms. Across these traditions, observation serves multiple purposes. It guides action, informs decision-making, reinforces relationships, and sustains well-being. The act of noticing, the way a mother senses a fever before it is measured, or a child senses the mood of the family, or a healer interprets patterns in sand, creates a web of responsiveness that is both practical and profound. Observation transforms life into an ongoing dialogue with body, community, and environment, where every detail holds significance and every moment contributes to resilience. Through attentive observation, humans learn to anticipate, respond, and care in ways that are relational and holistic. From medieval midwives to Victorian parents to Apache elders, the practice of mindfulness and attention binds generations, strengthens communities, and fosters continuity. It is in this quiet, deliberate noticing that life is preserved, harmony is restored, and the intricate balance of body, mind, and spirit is maintained. In this gentle reflection, the listener may sense the continuity of attentiveness as a thread running through history, a quiet, sustaining rhythm that teaches care, cultivates resilience, and binds individuals to each other, to their environment, and to the subtle currents of life itself. Across centuries and cultures, human beings have responded to illness not as a mere biological event, but as a disruption in the delicate harmony of life. The response, therefore, is both practical and symbolic, guided by intuition, observation, and structured practice. In medieval households, illness was met with a combination of ritual, care, and experiential knowledge. Mothers and midwives interpreted subtle signs: a flush of the skin, a change in appetite, a restless sleep. Remedies were applied with care, herbs crushed and brewed, prayers murmured, and charms laid beside the patient. Observation was intimate, informed by years of lived experience, yet framed within a structured approach. Specific herbs for fevers, certain incantations for spiritual imbalance, and the careful monitoring of temperature, pulse, and strength. Intuition guided the hands, but structure ensured continuity, consistency, and efficacy across generations. Victorian families faced illness with both medical advice and socially ritualized routines. Daily observation, scheduled meals, and attention to hygiene, rest, and environmental factors became standardized forms of care. Yet, intuition remained important. Parents noticed subtle behavioral changes in children, the onset of fatigue, or the early signs of fever, acting promptly before formal treatment could intervene. Ritualized care, from measured doses of herbal remedies to structured routines of cleanliness and rest, created a framework where intuition could be expressed safely and effectively. Among the Apache, responses to illness blend observation, spiritual insight, and precise ritual practice. Medicine men and women observe body, mind, and spirit, guided by years of ancestral wisdom and a deep connection to the natural world. Chants, sand paintings, and herbal applications are combined thoughtfully, each element aligned with intention and timing. Intuition guides the healer in adjusting rituals, responding to the subtle energy shifts of the patient, and engaging the community in ways that restore harmony. Structure provides a framework within which intuition can safely operate, ensuring that care is both effective and sacred. Across all three traditions, a common principle emerges. Healing is relational, attentive, and structured. Ritual provides the form. Intuition provides the life within it. Observation connects practitioner and patient, environment and body, spirit and community. These elements together create resilience, continuity, and the possibility of restoration. Even the smallest gestures, a carefully applied poultice, a whispered chant, a hand resting on a fevered brow, become meaningful when guided by the interplay of structured practice and intuitive awareness. Illness, once a disruptive force, is transformed into an opportunity for care, connection, and reflection. For the listener, this awareness becomes a gentle meditation, that life is maintained through observation, action, and the balance between discipline and intuition. Across medieval chambers, Victorian parlors, and Apache deserts, humans have discovered that structured care and intuitive responsiveness together form the enduring foundation of survival, healing, and the preservation of harmony. In every era, from medieval villages to Victorian towns, and across Apache communities in the desert, the thread of communal support weaves through the fabric of daily life, shaping experiences of birth, illness, and care. Human resilience has rarely been a solitary endeavor. Rather, it emerges from networks of attention, care, and shared responsibility that bind individuals together across generations. In medieval chambers, childbirth was not an isolated event. Midwives, elder women, and family members surrounded the laboring mother with knowledge, tools, and prayers. Each person had a role, from offering physical support to monitoring the health of mother and child. The collective attention mitigated the risks inherent in a world without modern medicine. Survival depended not solely on strength or skill, but on the cohesion, wisdom, and attentiveness of the community. Every whisper, every gesture, and every precaution carried weight, reinforcing the interdependence of lives within the household and village. Victorian families similarly relied on communal support, though structured differently. Seaside holidays, excursions, and domestic routines became exercises in coordinated care. Parents, children, and extended family members observed, guided, and assisted one another, reinforcing bonds through shared activity and vigilance. Social networks extended to neighbors, doctors, and even local institutions, offering guidance, reassurance, and practical aid. Community participation created continuity, ensuring that the vulnerabilities of childhood, illness, and fatigue were addressed collectively. In Apache culture, communal support is an essential and enduring principle. Healing ceremonies, daily routines, and the transmission of knowledge rely on active participation from family and community. Children learn by observing, assisting, and listening. Elders teach through example, guidance, and storytelling. Healing rituals involve the patient, healer, and community in a unified practice where everyone contributes to the restoration of balance. Even seemingly ordinary acts, sharing water, preparing meals, gathering herbs, are imbued with communal intention and care. Across these three contexts, the listener may perceive a continuum, that human survival, well-being, and flourishing are inseparable from the networks of care that surround individuals. Birth, illness, and daily life are all occasions where communal attention, ritualized support, and practical action intersect. Each society, in its own manner, recognizes that vulnerability is best met with shared vigilance, empathy, and coordinated effort. As the mind drifts, one can sense the quiet power of this continuity. It is the midwife's skilled hands guided by collective wisdom, the family's careful monitoring of a child's health and routines, the Apache community orchestrating ceremony and daily life in unison. Across time and space, communal support transforms vulnerability into resilience and isolation into connection. Through this enduring human practice, life is preserved, nurtured, and guided toward balance, offering a timeless meditation on the power of shared presence, care, and attentiveness. Across the landscapes of history, from the dimly lit medieval chambers to the bustling Victorian promenades, and into the open expanse of the Apache desert, human resilience has been cultivated through the careful integration of three enduring elements: ritual, observation, and communal care. Each of these dimensions amplifies the others, creating a lattice of support that sustains life, nurtures health, and preserves the continuity of experience. In medieval society, rituals surrounding childbirth, illness, and daily life were more than tradition. They were practical frameworks for survival. Midwives' chants, the layering of protective herbs, and the careful repetition of time-tested procedures were imbued with intention. Observation was constant. Every movement, every breath, every sigh was carefully interpreted. And yet, these acts were embedded within a network of communal support. Family members, neighbors, and elder women contributed knowledge, assistance, and vigilance, ensuring that the fragility of life was met with collective attention and care. Victorian families expanded this integration into daily life and leisure. Structured routines of rest, nourishment, and recreation functioned as secular rituals that sustained health and promoted well-being. Parents observed their children's moods, habits, and physical states, adjusting care according to subtle signs. Extended social networks and community institutions reinforced this attentiveness, offering guidance, oversight, and mutual support. Ritual, observation, and social care worked in concert, creating an environment where resilience could flourish despite the stresses of industrial life and social expectation. In Apache culture, the integration is explicit, spiritual, and deeply relational. Healing ceremonies blend ritualized chants, sand paintings, and herbal preparations with attentive observation of the patient's body, energy, and emotional state. Family and community participate actively, each gesture of care, every observation, every chant reinforcing the others. Healing is understood as a dynamic process, where the individual, the environment, and the community are interconnected. Ritual provides structure, observation guides action, and communal support amplifies the effectiveness of each intervention. Across these cultures, the integration of ritual, observation, and communal care reveals a fundamental truth: human resilience is not a solitary achievement. It emerges from the deliberate alignment of attention, intention, and relationship. Ritual stabilizes and structures life. Observation guides and informs action. Communal care multiplies capacity and strengthens continuity. Together, they create a robust framework that nurtures the fragile, sustains the vulnerable, and cultivates the enduring capacities of body, mind, and spirit. For the listener, this scene becomes a meditation on interconnectedness, a gentle recognition that resilience is cultivated not through isolation, but through mindful engagement with the rhythms of life, with the patterns of attention and care that transcend time and culture. Across medieval, Victorian, and Apache contexts, one sees the subtle harmony of human adaptation, a symphony of ritual, observation, and communal love echoing softly through generations. Across time and culture, humans have continually sought balance and harmony, not only as abstract ideals but as lived principles, woven into the fabric of daily existence. From the medieval household, through Victorian family routines, to Apache healing practices, one observes a consistent thread. Life is understood as a delicate equilibrium, and daily acts are the means through which it is nurtured, preserved, and restored. In medieval life, balance was expressed through the careful rhythms of survival. Mothers attended to infants with a combination of practical skill and ritualized care. Meals were prepared with attention to nutrition and spiritual propriety. Herbs, prayers, and charms acted as instruments of equilibrium, countering the uncertainty inherent in a world governed by mortality and disease. Harmony was not abstract. It was tangible, immediate, and often the difference between life and death. Every act, from lighting a fire to washing a newborn, was a deliberate engagement with forces beyond the individual, reflecting an understanding that human life is interdependent with unseen energies and communal norms. Victorian families cultivated balance through structure and attentiveness. Schedules, leisure excursions, dietary routines, and social etiquette all functioned as mechanisms of harmony. By aligning human activity with natural rhythms, sunlight, tides, seasons, families sought equilibrium between work, rest, and recreation. Observation and reflection, combined with deliberate attention to decorum and propriety, reinforced a sense of order and continuity. Harmony, in this context, was both internal and social, cultivated through mindful engagement with daily life, relationships, and environment. In Apache philosophy, balance and harmony extend seamlessly into the spiritual, communal, and ecological spheres. Illness is viewed as a disturbance of equilibrium. Healing is the restoration of balance within the patient, the community, and the natural world. Daily routines, preparing herbs, tending the land, observing celestial patterns, and participating in communal care are guided by this understanding. Harmony is dynamic, relational, and sacred, experienced through attentive interaction with all elements of life. The philosophy teaches that balance is not static. It requires ongoing awareness, deliberate practice, and responsiveness to the rhythms of nature and community. Across these eras and cultures, the listener can sense a meditation on continuity and attentiveness, that human life thrives not only through survival or comfort but through engagement with the principles of balance and harmony. Every gesture, every moment of observation, every act of care contributes to a subtle equilibrium that sustains health, nurtures resilience, and deepens connection. Harmony is lived, experienced, and perpetually renewed through the rhythms of daily practice, ritual, and relational awareness. In the quiet of reflection, one can perceive a gentle truth. Across centuries and continents, humans have cultivated the art of living in balance, discovering in ordinary routines, communal support, and ritualized attentiveness the profound wisdom that sustains life, nourishes spirit, and guides the enduring pursuit of well-being. Patience, resilience, and mindfulness are threads that bind human experience across centuries, landscapes, and cultures. They emerge quietly in the repetition of daily routines, the careful tending of the vulnerable, and the deliberate practice of ritual. These qualities, though shaped differently in medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache communities, reveal a shared human pursuit: the cultivation of endurance, awareness, and harmonious living. In medieval households, patience was demanded by the slow rhythms of survival. Laboring mothers endured long hours of childbirth, infants required constant attention, and illnesses progressed unpredictably. Patience was not merely a virtue but a necessity, allowing individuals and communities to respond thoughtfully rather than react in panic. Resilience arose from repeated practice. The midwife's steady guidance, the mother's endurance, and the community's unwavering support cultivated strength over time. Mindfulness, though unspoken in the language of the era, was embedded in observation, attentiveness, and the ritualized care of every moment. Victorian families, with their structured routines and social expectations, extended these qualities into daily life and leisure. Patience was exercised in waiting for the tide to recede, for children to master new skills, or for health to improve. Resilience was nurtured through coordinated family activity, observation, and careful planning. Mindfulness took the form of attentive engagement, noticing subtle signs in children's behavior, the ebb and flow of the sea, or the rhythm of communal interactions. These practices reinforced harmony, stability, and the ability to endure the pressures of an industrializing world. In Apache culture, patience, resilience, and mindfulness are central to both survival and spiritual practice. Healing rituals may last hours or days, requiring participants to remain attentive, present, and responsive. Patience is cultivated through ceremonial rhythm. Resilience is strengthened through relational support, continuous observation, and adherence to spiritual and ecological principles. Mindfulness is interwoven with daily activity, preparing herbs, performing rituals, tending animals, and observing nature. Every action is infused with deliberate awareness, ensuring that body, spirit, and community remain aligned. Across these cultures, the cultivation of these qualities reflects a profound understanding. Life is fragile, unpredictable, and interconnected. Patience allows for measured response, resilience provides the strength to endure hardship, and mindfulness fosters alignment with both immediate circumstances and the broader rhythms of life. Together, they form an invisible architecture of survival, wellness, and human flourishing. For the listener, this scene becomes a gentle meditation on the universality of human endurance. Across dimly lit medieval chambers, sunlit Victorian promenades, and the vast expanse of the Apache desert, one can sense the quiet cultivation of inner strength, attentiveness, and presence. These traits, nurtured over generations, carry forward an enduring legacy: the human capacity to meet challenge with grace, to observe with clarity, and to engage with life fully, moment by moment. Throughout human history, the health and well-being of individuals have been inextricably linked to the attentiveness, care, and vigilance of the community. Across medieval, Victorian, and Apache contexts, one observes a delicate dance between personal responsibility and collective obligation, where awareness of the self and mindfulness of others converge to sustain life. In medieval households, the survival of mother and child was never solely a personal endeavor. The laboring woman relied on the skill of the midwife, the counsel of experienced neighbors, and the practical support of family members. The mother herself had to be attentive, following advice on diet, ritual, and rest, yet her awareness was inseparable from the vigilance of those around her. The household functioned as a living network, where observation, action, and care were distributed across the group, creating a resilient system that could respond to crisis, illness, or fatigue with coordinated effort. Victorian families similarly balanced individual attentiveness with collective oversight. Parents monitored children's health, guided their moral and social development, and maintained daily routines, while communities, teachers, and local institutions reinforced patterns of hygiene, rest, and recreation. Individual awareness, recognizing subtle signs of illness, fatigue, or emotional need, was essential, but its effectiveness relied on the structures of shared responsibility, social expectation, and communal support. Health and well-being were cultivated in the interplay between self-observation and the watchful care of others, creating stability within both domestic and social spheres. In Apache culture, this interplay reaches its fullest expression. Individual mindfulness, observing one's own body, emotions, and spiritual state, is inseparable from communal participation. Healing ceremonies, daily routines, and the preparation of food and medicine involve both personal attentiveness and collective action. The well-being of each member depends on the vigilance, guidance, and collaboration of family and community, and in turn, each individual contributes actively to the equilibrium of the group. Illness is understood as a disruption of balance, not just in a single body, but in the broader relational and ecological network, requiring cooperation, insight, and shared care to restore harmony. Across these cultures, a pattern emerges. Health is not solely a matter of the individual, nor purely a collective responsibility. It exists in the space between, in the mindful engagement of self, the observant care of others, and the rituals and routines that bind communities together. Observation, attentiveness, and deliberate action intertwine, creating a dynamic system capable of sustaining life, nurturing resilience, and cultivating the well-being of each member within the larger whole. For the listener, this becomes a gentle meditation that human existence thrives on the balance of personal mindfulness and collective care. Across centuries and landscapes, from medieval chambers to Victorian promenades, from desert plains to communal circles, well-being is an ongoing dialogue between the self and the community, a continuous practice of attention, intention, and shared responsibility that guides life toward harmony, health, and continuity. Across the centuries, one of humanity's most profound achievements has been the careful transmission of knowledge, skill, and wisdom from one generation to the next. Whether in the dimly lit medieval chamber, the structured Victorian household, or the expansive Apache landscape, life and well-being have depended on the ability of elders, experienced practitioners, and family members to pass on the subtle arts of care, healing, and ritual. In medieval society, this transmission was deeply experiential. Midwives taught apprentices by demonstration, guiding them through the intricate processes of childbirth, herbal preparation, and communal support. Knowledge of protective charms, prayers, and remedies was conveyed not in textbooks but through careful observation, repetition, and intimate guidance. Young women and mothers absorbed lessons from elders, internalizing the rhythms of care and the subtleties of attention that could mean the difference between life and death. Every ritual, from the lighting of candles to the arrangement of herbs, carried layered meaning, ensuring that practical skill and spiritual insight were inseparable in the cultivation of survival. Victorian families extended this principle into both domestic and social spheres. Parents modeled attentiveness, hygiene, and structured routines, while children observed, imitated, and gradually internalized practices of self-care and communal responsibility. Knowledge of health, social propriety, and moral conduct was transmitted through shared meals, leisure activities, and carefully orchestrated daily schedules. Education was both explicit and tacit, formal and informal. The continuity of skill and wisdom depended not only on instruction but on observation, reflection, and the disciplined repetition of habits that reinforced stability, resilience, and social cohesion. Among Apache communities, the intergenerational transmission of knowledge is deeply sacred. Healing practices, ceremonial chants, and the preparation of medicines are taught through apprenticeship, storytelling, and active participation in ritual. Children and younger members learn not only the practical steps but the meaning, intention, and spiritual significance behind each act. Elders provide guidance, correction, and insight, while the communal environment allows repeated observation and immersive practice. Knowledge is not merely intellectual, it is embodied, relational, and attuned to cycles of life, the land, and the cosmos. Each generation becomes both guardian and transmitter, ensuring that wisdom is preserved, adapted, and amplified. Across these contexts, the listener can perceive a profound truth. Human survival and flourishing are sustained through careful, deliberate teaching, guided observation, and the patient unfolding of skill over time. The passing of knowledge is more than instruction. It is the weaving of cultural continuity, the reinforcement of values, and the cultivation of attentiveness, resilience, and harmony. In reflection, one may sense the quiet power of generations connected through practice, observation, and ritual. From medieval midwives instructing their apprentices, to Victorian parents modeling routines and propriety, to Apache elders guiding youth in sacred ceremonies, knowledge flows across time as both a lifeline and a legacy, ensuring that the skills essential for care, health, and the preservation of life endure, whispering across centuries in a gentle, sustaining rhythm. Ritual and observation, while deeply practical in human survival, also serve as profound instruments for reinforcing societal values, moral conduct, and the cohesion of communities. Across medieval villages, Victorian towns, and Apache communities, the act of participating in structured routines, attentive observation, and ceremonial practices conveys lessons that extend far beyond immediate physical care. These practices instill understanding, cultivate virtue, and shape the character of individuals within a shared social and spiritual framework. In medieval life, ritualized acts, whether prayers at the bedside, the careful preparation of meals, or the communal witnessing of birth and baptism, functioned as both protective measures and moral instruction. The attentiveness required in these acts taught patience, respect for communal norms, and recognition of human vulnerability. Children and young women observed, learned, and internalized these lessons, discovering through experience the responsibilities, proprieties, and moral expectations of their society. Observation was not passive, it was active instruction, a mechanism for transmitting social wisdom and ethical guidance alongside practical skill. Victorian society, with its intricate codes of propriety and structured daily life, made similar use of observation and ritual. Family routines, holiday excursions, and social gatherings operated as vehicles for moral education. By observing the behaviors of elders and peers, how one dressed, walked, spoke, and interacted, children internalized lessons of decorum, empathy, and civic responsibility. Ritualized leisure, attention to hygiene, and the deliberate management of time reinforced self-discipline, social awareness, and communal values. Each act, however ordinary it appeared, carried a subtle moral dimension, shaping behavior in alignment with societal norms and ethical expectations. In Apache culture, ritual, observation, and communal engagement are intertwined with moral and spiritual guidance. Participation in ceremonies, attentive observation of elders, and careful practice of sacred traditions convey not only practical skills but profound ethical principles. Respect for the land, care for the sick, the balance of community relationships, and adherence to spiritual wisdom are reinforced through lived experience, observation, and guided participation. Ritual becomes a medium through which moral understanding is enacted, experienced, and internalized. Across these three cultures, the listener may sense a continuity, that ritual and observation do more than preserve life, they shape it. They provide the framework within which individuals learn responsibility, cultivate virtue, and align personal conduct with the broader needs of community and spirit. Every repeated gesture, every attentive observation, every ceremonial act contributes to the moral and ethical education of participants, quietly weaving a tapestry of social cohesion and ethical continuity. As the mind drifts in contemplation, one can recognize a subtle harmony. Human life is sustained not only through care and survival but through the transmission of values, the cultivation of observation, and the disciplined practice of ritual. Across centuries, rituals guide conduct, observation teaches insight, and communities flourish as individuals learn to act in ways that honor both themselves and those around them, creating a shared rhythm of ethical awareness, moral resilience, and collective harmony. Across cultures and centuries, human communities have consistently recognized that health, morality, and communal harmony are not isolated domains, but intricately intertwined aspects of daily life. In medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache societies, individual well-being was inseparable from the ethical and social dimensions of living, and everyday practices served to maintain this delicate balance. In medieval households, the act of caring for the sick, attending to newborns, and preparing meals was imbued with moral significance. Compassion, attentiveness, and diligence were expected as much as technical skill. Healing and caregiving were not merely physical acts. They were ethical exercises, reinforcing community cohesion and spiritual integrity. Observing proper rituals, offering prayers, and adhering to accepted social norms ensured that personal health aligned with the expectations and values of the community. In these moments, morality and health were co-constructed, and communal harmony was maintained through shared responsibility and deliberate attention. Victorian society, with its structured routines and social proprieties, similarly linked well-being to ethical conduct. Maintaining cleanliness, following daily schedules, and engaging in wholesome recreation were not only practical for physical health, but also markers of moral discipline and social respectability. Parents and elders guided children in these practices, emphasizing responsibility, empathy, and decorum, ensuring that individual habits reinforced collective social harmony. By attending to both body and behavior, Victorian families cultivated a sense of order, balance, and interconnected responsibility that bound communities together. For the Apache, health, morality, and communal harmony are explicitly inseparable. Healing rituals, ceremonies, and daily practices reflect an understanding that physical, spiritual, and social well-being are interconnected. Actions that harm the environment or neglect communal obligations are believed to disturb this balance, while mindful participation, ethical behavior, and attentive care restore it. Observing elders, honoring traditions, and acting with intentionality ensure that individual choices resonate in harmony with the community, the land, and the cosmos. Health becomes a moral and social responsibility, and the community thrives when each member fulfills their role with awareness and integrity. Across these societies, one observes a profound insight. Well-being is relational. Health is not merely the absence of illness. Morality is not solely personal virtue, and harmony is not a passive condition. Each emerges from the careful interplay of individual actions, communal observation, and ethical engagement. Everyday practices, feeding, cleaning, observing, listening, and assisting, become acts of ethical responsibility, sustaining the body, nurturing the soul, and reinforcing social bonds. For the listener, this scene becomes a meditation on the subtle web of life, that care for the body, attentiveness to others, and adherence to moral and social norms are not separate tasks, but aspects of a single ongoing practice. Across medieval halls, Victorian homes, and Apache communities, humans cultivate well-being through the conscious integration of health, morality, and communal harmony, discovering in the ordinary rhythms of daily life the extraordinary continuity of human resilience, ethical presence, and social cohesion. Across the ebb and flow of history, humans have developed a keen awareness of the importance of prevention, foresight, and anticipation in sustaining life. Long before modern medicine and public health, communities understood that careful attention, structured routines, and thoughtful preparation could avert illness, safeguard the vulnerable, and preserve communal stability. From medieval Europe to Victorian Britain, and across Apache societies, the practice of anticipating risks and acting preventively became an essential dimension of daily life. In medieval households, preventive care was woven into the rhythms of the day. Midwives instructed mothers on diet, rest, and hygiene, teaching them how to fortify their bodies during pregnancy and postpartum. Herbs were carefully selected not merely for treatment, but for their prophylactic properties. Rooms were prepared, fires maintained, and daily rituals observed with diligence. Anticipation was cultivated through observation, recognizing early signs of illness, subtle changes in behavior or complexion, and the environmental factors that might threaten health. In these acts, knowledge, experience, and attentiveness combine to reduce risk and create stability amid uncertainty. Victorian families extended preventive thinking into broader domains of domestic life and social practice. Hygiene, nutrition, regular exercise, and exposure to fresh air were emphasized as essential measures to maintain health. Routine observation of children's habits, moods, and physical condition allowed parents to intervene before illness arose. Community institutions, medical advice, and social norms reinforced preventive practices, creating an integrated system in which foresight, vigilance, and deliberate preparation became part of everyday experience. Anticipation in this context was both personal and social, blending the attentiveness of the individual with the support of a wider network. In Apache culture, prevention and anticipation are understood holistically, connecting body, spirit, community, and environment. Daily practices, gathering medicinal herbs, tending livestock, observing seasonal changes, and participating in ritual cycles, serve to maintain balance and prevent disruption. Healers teach younger generations to recognize subtle signs of imbalance, to respond before illness manifests, and to harmonize human activity with the rhythms of nature. Anticipation is not merely precaution. It is an embodied awareness of relational dynamics, a proactive engagement with the interconnected systems of life, and a continuous practice of mindfulness and respect. Across these societies, preventive care emerges as both an art and a science, a convergence of observation, experience, ritual, and relational awareness. Anticipation enables humans to navigate uncertainty, protect life, and reinforce social bonds, transforming the ordinary practices of daily existence into deliberate acts of foresight and preservation. For the listener, this reflection becomes a gentle meditation that the quiet attentiveness, structured routines, and subtle vigilance of historical communities are not merely echoes of the past, but timeless lessons in foresight, care, and mindfulness. Across medieval homes, Victorian promenades, and Apache ceremonial spaces, the cultivation of preventive awareness safeguards life, nurtures resilience, and fosters a harmonious relationship with the rhythms, risks, and possibilities of daily existence. Across the vast tapestry of human history, the environment has always shaped daily life, influencing the rhythms of survival, health, and social interaction. Humans have continuously adapted their practices to meet the challenges and opportunities presented by climate, geography, resources, and seasonal cycles. From the medieval village to Victorian towns and the Apache homelands of the Southwest, the interplay between environment, daily routines, and adaptive strategies reflects an enduring intelligence, a quiet attentiveness to the world that sustains life and nurtures resilience. In medieval Europe, daily practices were inseparable from the land and climate. Food preparation, heating, clothing, and shelter were attuned to seasonal changes and local resources. Midwives, healers, and mothers observed the environment carefully, predicting disease outbreaks, preparing remedies from local herbs, and modifying routines according to temperature, rainfall, and seasonal labor demands. Adaptation was a matter of survival. Even simple tasks, storing grains, tending livestock, maintaining hearths, were deliberate responses to environmental realities, ensuring continuity of life and well-being. Victorian life similarly reflected an intricate understanding of environment and adaptation. Families organized routines around daylight, tides, and the seasons. Seaside excursions were timed to tides, and tides were considered beneficial for health. Daily hygiene, clothing, and leisure were shaped by weather, social norms, and urban infrastructure. Observing subtle shifts in air quality, water conditions, or the physical responses of children guided adaptive practices in households and communities. This attentiveness created a balance between human aspiration and environmental reality, ensuring health, comfort, and social cohesion. In Apache society, the integration of environmental awareness into daily life is profound and holistic. Survival, health, and spiritual balance are inseparable from the rhythms of the desert, rivers, mountains, and sky. Daily activities, gathering medicinal plants, tending crops, hunting, preparing ceremonies, require acute attention to the landscape, seasonal cycles, and ecological signals. Adaptive strategies are cultivated through observation, experience, and communal knowledge, ensuring that actions harmonize with natural rhythms rather than disrupt them. This deep attentiveness allows communities to flourish even in challenging environments, transforming potential scarcity or adversity into sustainable living. Across these cultures, the listener may perceive a continuum of adaptation. Humans respond to environmental challenges not merely with reactive measures, but through the integration of observation, routine, ritual, and collective wisdom. Daily practices become adaptive strategies, harmonizing survival, health, and social life with the natural world. For the mind at rest, this reflection invites a quiet meditation that human ingenuity, patience, and attentiveness have always been shaped by the environment, and that survival, care, and flourishing are inseparable from the ability to read, respect, and respond to the rhythms of the natural world. Across medieval villages, Victorian streets, and Apache homelands, humans have cultivated a profound relational awareness, allowing daily life to harmonize with the cycles, challenges, and opportunities of the world around them. Through the corridors of time, one of humanity's most enduring practices has been the careful transmission of adaptive knowledge across generations. The ability to survive, thrive, and maintain well-being in ever-changing circumstances relies not only on individual observation and skill, but also on the guidance, teaching, and example provided by elders, family members, and community leaders. Across medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache society, this intergenerational exchange has ensured that survival strategies, cultural wisdom, and practical know-how persist and evolve. In medieval communities, elders and skilled practitioners, midwives, herbalists, and experienced mothers taught younger generations how to navigate the complexities of daily life. Lessons were often learned through demonstration, apprenticeship, and attentive observation. Young women absorbed the subtleties of childbirth, household management, and herbal remedies not through formal instruction but through lived experience, repeated guidance, and communal reinforcement. Each story, each ritual, and each act of care became a vessel of knowledge, carrying both practical skill and ethical understanding, linking past, present, and future. Victorian families similarly relied on structured routines and shared observation to transmit knowledge. Parents modeled behavior, household management, and leisure practices to ensure that children internalized patterns conducive to health, social propriety, and moral development. Extended family, neighbors, and community institutions reinforced these lessons, creating a multi-layered network of observation, guidance, and social expectation. Knowledge was cumulative, layered, and relational, each generation building upon the experiences of those who came before, while adapting to the social and environmental conditions of the present. In Apache culture, The intergenerational transmission of knowledge is both sacred and practical. Elders teach young members the rhythms of the land, the preparation of medicinal herbs, ceremonial practices, and strategies for maintaining balance within the community and the natural world. Learning is immersive. Observation, participation, repetition, and reflection form the core of understanding. Knowledge is contextual, adaptive, and relational, ensuring that survival skills, spiritual practices, and communal responsibilities are passed on in ways that honor the environment and sustain continuity. Each generation becomes both guardian and transmitter, ensuring that the wisdom of experience persists while remaining responsive to change. Across these cultures, the listener can perceive a profound principle. The survival and flourishing of communities are dependent on the intentional transfer of adaptive knowledge. Observation, guidance, and experiential learning allow each generation to navigate challenges, anticipate risks, and cultivate resilience. The past becomes a living guide, and the present becomes a laboratory for practice, while the future is secured through the deliberate care of elders and teachers. As the mind drifts in contemplation, one senses a quiet continuity. Across medieval homes, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache homelands, the careful sharing of adaptive knowledge ensures that life, health, and cultural identity are preserved. Survival is not merely the work of the individual. It is a dialogue across time, a continuous exchange of wisdom, observation, and practice that links generations in an enduring chain of resilience, care, and mindful living. Across the vast expanse of human history, rituals have served as vessels of memory, anchors of identity, and instruments for the reinforcement of communal cohesion. In medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache societies, ritualized observation, carefully watching, participating, and repeating ceremonial acts, has preserved not only practical knowledge but also the essence of cultural identity, transmitting values, histories, and social norms across generations. In medieval life, ritual permeated both ordinary and extraordinary moments. Births, weddings, baptisms, and seasonal festivals were observed with careful attention to tradition, ensuring that communal memory was woven into the lived experience of daily life. Young participants learned the stories, practices, and expectations of their society through observation and repetition. The gestures of elders, the recitation of prayers, and the careful sequencing of actions became a living archive, ensuring that social norms, spiritual beliefs, and cultural narratives endured despite the fragility of human life. Ritual was thus both a guide and a repository, allowing communities to carry forward knowledge, ethics, and shared history in each carefully observed moment. Victorian society, with its structured routines and codified behaviors, similarly used ritualized observation to instill a sense of continuity and cultural coherence. Religious services, social gatherings, holiday observances, and family traditions offered repeated opportunities for individuals to witness and internalize the rhythms of propriety, morality, and collective values. Observation was active. Children and newcomers learn not only through instruction but by participating in rituals, noting gestures, patterns, and responses, and gradually absorbing the underlying principles of social and cultural order. Ritual reinforced the moral and ethical scaffolding of everyday life, shaping identity while preserving collective memory. For Apache communities, ritualized observation is both spiritual and practical, linking the individual to community, environment, and ancestry. Ceremonies, healing practices, and seasonal observances rely on attentive participation, careful imitation, and reflective observation. Each action, chant, or preparation carries layers of meaning, encoding lessons about ethics, ecology, spiritual balance, and communal responsibility. Through repetition and observation, participants internalize a sense of identity that is inseparable from community, landscape, and tradition. Ritual becomes a living memory, a bridge across generations, and a guide for present and future actions. Across these diverse cultures, one observes a unifying principle. The meticulous observation of ritual serves to encode knowledge, reinforce social cohesion, and cultivate a shared sense of identity. Through participation and attentiveness, individuals internalize the lessons of the past, experience the rhythms of their society, and contribute to the preservation of collective memory. Ritual is not passive. It is an active, participatory engagement that transforms memory into practice and identity into lived reality. For the listener, this scene becomes a gentle meditation on the enduring power of observation, that by watching, learning, and participating in ritual, humans connect with history, community, and culture. Across medieval halls, Victorian parlors, and Apache ceremonial grounds, ritualized observation ensures that knowledge, values, and identity flow continuously, linking generations and shaping the subtle yet enduring fabric of human life. Throughout human history, daily routines and ceremonial acts have functioned not as separate realms, but as complementary threads weaving together the tapestry of mental, physical, and social well-being. In medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache societies, the convergence of repetitive practices, attentiveness, and ritual created structures that sustained individuals and communities alike, providing rhythm, meaning, and resilience in the face of life's uncertainties. In medieval households, the ordinary and the sacred intertwined seamlessly. Cooking, cleaning, tending livestock, and preparing for seasonal festivals were imbued with significance beyond their practical purpose. Each act demanded attention, patience, and care, shaping the rhythm of the day and reinforcing social bonds. Midwives, mothers, and elders orchestrated these routines with a blend of skill, tradition, and intuition, guiding young participants to internalize both practical knowledge and ethical values. The repetition of daily tasks became a stabilizing force, supporting mental focus, emotional resilience, and physical endurance. Victorian families extended this principle into the structured cadence of domestic life and leisure. Rigid schedules for meals, rest, hygiene, and study were punctuated by ceremonial observances, Sunday walks, social calls, holiday celebrations, and seaside excursions. Each routine and act of ritual reinforced habits of attentiveness, respect, and cooperation, nurturing mental discipline, physical health, and social harmony. Participation in these practices created a sense of security and continuity, allowing families to navigate the pressures of industrial life while fostering connection, empathy, and collective resilience. For Apache communities, the convergence of daily routines and ceremonial acts is central to holistic well-being. The tending of crops, preparation of food and medicine, participation in communal work, and involvement in spiritual ceremonies all function as integrated practices. Attention to the body, mind, spirit, and environment is cultivated through repetition, observation, and communal engagement. The cyclical nature of daily work, combined with ritualized observances, reinforces physical stamina, mental clarity, and social cohesion. Each individual's actions ripple outward, sustaining the health of the family, the community, and the broader ecological network. Across these contexts, the listener can sense a profound continuity, that well-being is nurtured not solely through isolated interventions, but through the disciplined interplay of routine, ritual, and mindful participation. Daily tasks and ceremonial acts mutually reinforce one another, embedding lessons of patience, attentiveness, empathy, and resilience within the very fabric of life. Mental, physical, and social health emerge together, harmonized by repeated practice, communal engagement, and mindful observance. As the mind drifts gently, this scene invites reflection, that ordinary moments, the tending of a hearth, a structured walk, the careful preparation of a ritual, are never truly ordinary. They are instruments through which humans cultivate strength, clarity, and connection, weaving stability into the flow of existence. Across medieval homes, Victorian parlors, and Apache ceremonial grounds, daily routines and ceremonial acts converge to sustain life, nurture resilience, and uphold the delicate balance of mind, body, and community. Across the continuum of human experience, care, ritual, and observation have functioned simultaneously as practical necessities and symbolic gestures, anchoring life in meaning, structure, and continuity. From the intimate chambers of medieval households to the disciplined rhythms of Victorian society and the spiritual landscapes of Apache communities, these practices form the subtle architecture of existence, ensuring that each generation inherits not only survival skills but also ethical, social, and spiritual wisdom. In medieval life, The acts of nurturing, attending, and observing carried layers of meaning. Midwives guiding a woman through labor did more than assist physically. They enacted a ritual of trust, intergenerational knowledge, and spiritual safeguarding. Observing the rules of diet, hygiene, and prayer was both practical, sustaining health, and symbolic, reinforcing the sacredness of birth and the interconnectedness of life. Every measured gesture, every attentive glance, became a thread linking past, present, and future, embedding continuity within the fragile human experience. Victorian society elevated routine and ceremony to mechanisms of both care and moral symbolism. Structured daily practices, hygiene, diet, exercise, and organized leisure were observed with care, ensuring the preservation of health. At the same time, the meticulous performance of social rituals, family gatherings, and public celebrations conveyed the values of propriety, responsibility, and community. Observation of these acts, especially by younger generations, transmitted not only practical skills but also the ethical framework and cultural memory that allowed continuity in social life. Routine and ritual became intertwined instruments of preservation, linking the tangible and intangible aspects of existence. Among the Apache, care, ritual, and observation are inseparable from the cycles of life, the environment, and communal well-being. Healing ceremonies, preparation of medicines, and seasonal observances are acts of attentiveness that sustain physical health, nurture spiritual balance, and reinforce social bonds. Each gesture carries symbolic weight. It represents respect for ancestors, acknowledgement of interdependence, and alignment with the rhythms of the natural world. Observation, participation, and repeated practice ensure that knowledge, skill, and ethical understanding are transmitted faithfully across generations, sustaining the continuity of life in all its dimensions. Across these cultures, the listener can perceive a universal truth: that life is sustained not only through action but through the mindful performance of rituals, the careful observation of patterns, and the deliberate exercise of care. These practices function as bridges across time, ensuring that wisdom, skill, and social cohesion endure. Care becomes ethical, ritual becomes instructive, and observation becomes a tool for continuity, harmonizing practical survival with moral, spiritual, and cultural transmission. As the mind drifts into stillness, this scene invites gentle reflection, that the ordinary acts of attentiveness, the deliberate repetition of ritual, and the careful observation of life's rhythms are threads in the enduring tapestry of human existence. Across medieval halls, Victorian streets, and Apache ceremonial spaces, care, ritual, and observation weave continuity into the fragile, fleeting, and precious fabric of life, ensuring that knowledge, balance, and connection flow unbroken through generations. As we journey to the threshold of understanding human continuity, one realizes that the practices of care, ritual, observation, and routine converge to form a subtle but enduring architecture of resilience, adaptation, and communal identity. Across medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache society, the threads of daily life, ceremonial observance, and attentive guidance interweave, creating a network that sustains individuals, families, and communities through the uncertainties and exigencies of existence. In medieval communities, resilience emerged from the convergence of knowledge, experience, and social cohesion. Midwives guided labor, elders instructed youth, and daily rituals reinforced both health and morality. Adaptation was cultivated through attentive observation, reading the signs of illness, anticipating environmental challenges, and responding with accumulated wisdom. Communities survived not merely through individual effort but through the deliberate coordination of care, ritual, and mutual support, which together fortified identity, continuity, and the capacity to endure. Victorian society, with its disciplined routines and codified social norms, exemplified how structured practices reinforced adaptability and communal coherence. Families and communities cultivated health, propriety, and emotional stability through the integration of daily schedules, leisure rituals, and social participation. The observation of elders and peers shaped moral understanding, while routines prepared individuals to anticipate challenges. Adaptation was not reactive but cultivated proactively, ensuring that both individuals and communities remained resilient amidst industrial, environmental, and social pressures. In Apache culture, the integration of care, ritual, observation, and ecological awareness embodies a holistic understanding of resilience and adaptation. Healing practices, seasonal ceremonies, and daily routines sustain physical well-being, spiritual equilibrium, and social harmony. Each generation inherits not only knowledge and skill, but also a sense of identity intertwined with the land, community, and ancestral memory. Adaptation is embedded in rhythm, attentiveness, and relational awareness, allowing communities to thrive in dynamic and often challenging environments. Resilience emerges naturally, nurtured by the integration of practical action, spiritual observance, and communal responsibility. Across these diverse contexts, the listener can perceive a unifying principle. Human life flourishes not through isolated practices, but through the interconnection of knowledge, care, ritual, and observation. Resilience is cultivated through repeated practice, social guidance, and ethical engagement. Adaptation is sustained by attentiveness, foresight, and the careful reading of the environment. Communal identity endures when shared practices, rituals, and observations link individuals across generations, embedding continuity, balance, and collective memory into the very fabric of daily life. As the mind drifts gently into reflection, one may sense the quiet power of interconnected practices, that survival, well-being, and identity are nurtured not merely through circumstance, but through deliberate, attentive, and relational engagement with the rhythms of life. Across medieval households, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache ceremonial spaces, humans have cultivated a legacy of resilience, adaptation, and communal identity, teaching us that continuity, care, and connection are the most enduring gifts passed through time. Within the rhythms of human existence, there is a profound interplay between observation, ritual, and daily practice, a triad that nurtures emotional and spiritual resilience across time and culture. From the dimly lit chambers of medieval homes to the bustling parlors of Victorian society and the sacred ceremonial spaces of Apache communities, these interconnected practices create stability, cultivate insight, and allow the human spirit to endure uncertainty and change. In medieval life, the careful observation of elders, neighbors, and midwives offered more than practical instruction. It provided reassurance, guidance, and a sense of belonging. Daily routines, whether tending the hearth, preparing herbal remedies, or participating in communal prayers, reinforced rhythm and predictability, anchoring individuals amidst the unpredictability of illness, childbirth, and seasonal hardship. Rituals, both private and communal, offered a framework for emotional processing, turning moments of anxiety, grief, or joy into structured experiences that the community could share and support. Emotional resilience was cultivated through repetition, observation, and attentive participation, creating a subtle yet enduring strength that carried individuals through life's challenges. Victorian households also exemplified this integration. Structured routines, meals at regular times, strict hygiene, educational practices, and scheduled leisure, combined with social rituals, religious observances, and holiday ceremonies to reinforce psychological stability and moral grounding. Observation played a central role. Children and younger adults learned through careful attention to the behaviors and responses of elders, absorbing lessons about propriety, empathy, and endurance. Ritualized leisure and communal participation became spaces for emotional regulation, providing relief from industrial pressures while nurturing inner strength and social cohesion. For Apache communities, the intersection of observation, ritual, and daily practice is both spiritual and ecological. Healing ceremonies, preparation of sacred spaces, and attentiveness to environmental cues cultivate awareness of interconnectedness, teaching individuals to respond thoughtfully and harmoniously to life's fluctuations. Emotional resilience arises from participation in community life, where shared rituals offer support, guidance, and the integration of experience with spiritual understanding. Daily practices, preparing food, tending the land, maintaining sacred knowledge, reinforce rhythms that sustain both mental and spiritual equilibrium, connecting the individual to the broader cycles of community and nature. Across these cultures, the listener may sense a universal principle. Emotional and spiritual resilience is cultivated not through sudden intervention but through deliberate, repeated, and interconnected practices. Observation sharpens awareness, ritual provides structure and meaning, and daily practice reinforces consistency, creating a stable foundation upon which individuals and communities can navigate adversity with grace and continuity. As the mind drifts toward rest, this scene invites quiet reflection that the deliberate engagement with ritual, observation, and routine is more than habit. It is a form of spiritual nourishment, an emotional compass, and a communal thread. Across medieval halls, Victorian parlors, and Apache ceremonial spaces, humans have harnessed these intertwined practices to cultivate resilience, guiding the heart and spirit through uncertainty and embedding continuity, care, and harmony into the rhythm of life. Throughout human history, survival has depended as much on foresight and attentiveness as on physical strength or resources. In medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache society, communities cultivated the subtle art of anticipating risks, whether illness, environmental danger, or social disruption, and mitigating them through daily attentiveness, structured routines, and communal guidance. These practices, often invisible to the casual observer, shape the rhythms of life, reinforcing resilience, cohesion, and continuity across generations. In medieval households, attentiveness was both a practical and moral act. Midwives, mothers, and elders observed the smallest changes in behavior, complexion, or appetite, interpreting them as early signals of illness or imbalance. Daily routines, preparing herbs, maintaining clean hearths, and organizing household labor, served as preventive measures, reducing the likelihood of harm before it could take root. Guidance from experienced elders provided a framework for young members to learn these patterns, internalizing both practical skill and ethical responsibility. In these practices, anticipation became a cultivated habit, a way of weaving foresight into the texture of everyday life. Victorian families similarly structured daily life to minimize risk and preserve well-being. Hygiene, diet, exercise, and exposure to fresh air were not mere preferences. They were deliberate strategies to prevent illness and promote resilience. Social and moral instruction reinforced attentiveness. Children were taught to observe the environment, respect schedules, and respond thoughtfully to emerging challenges. The communal reinforcement of these practices created a network of observation and support, enabling families and neighborhoods to adapt proactively to the pressures of industrial, environmental, and social change. Anticipation became both a personal and collective responsibility. For Apache communities, risk is understood relationally. It arises not only from physical or environmental threats but from disruptions in spiritual, social, or ecological balance. Daily attentiveness to the land, the behavior of animals, and the rhythms of human activity allows for early intervention. Rituals, communal gatherings, and mentorship from elders teach younger generations to recognize subtle warning signs and respond harmoniously, mitigating potential harm before it manifests. Here, anticipation is inseparable from observation, participation, and ethical engagement, ensuring that both individuals and the community remain aligned with natural and spiritual rhythms. Across these societies, the listener may perceive a common principle. The capacity to anticipate and mitigate risk is cultivated through repeated, attentive practice, guided observation, and communal support. Risk management is not an abstract concept but a living skill embedded in the patterns of daily life, the rhythm of ritual, and the shared wisdom of generations. As the mind drifts into calm reflection, this scene invites gentle awareness that through careful observation, mindful routines, and the guidance of experienced community members, humans have learned to navigate uncertainty, safeguard life, and nurture continuity. Across medieval halls, Victorian homes, and Apache landscapes, the art of foresight is woven seamlessly into daily existence, sustaining resilience, harmony, and the enduring thread of communal life. Across centuries and cultures, human societies have relied on the seamless integration of communal knowledge, ritual, and daily practice to shape not only survival but also ethical and practical understanding of life. From the hearths of medieval villages to the structured households of Victorian Britain and the ceremonial landscapes of Apache communities, these intertwined practices guided individuals in living harmoniously with their environment, community, and self. In medieval Europe, communal knowledge was preserved through oral tradition, apprenticeship, and ritualized observance. Elders taught young women the skills of childbirth, herbal medicine, and household management, emphasizing both practical proficiency and ethical responsibility. Daily routines, preparing meals, tending animals, maintaining the home, were imbued with ritual significance, embedding moral and spiritual principles into acts that might otherwise seem mundane. In this way, the mundane and the sacred merged, allowing ordinary life to carry the weight of cultural values and shared wisdom. Victorian society similarly cultivated ethical and practical understanding through the integration of structured routines and ritualized behaviors. Children learned through observation and participation. Daily schedules, household chores, and etiquette lessons were reinforced by religious observances, social gatherings, and family traditions. These practices nurtured not only discipline and competence but also a sense of moral and social responsibility. Knowledge was reinforced through repeated practice, attentive observation, and guidance from elders and peers, ensuring that each generation inherited the tools to navigate life's complexities with integrity and care. For Apache communities, this integration is deeply holistic. Healing rituals, seasonal ceremonies, and ecological stewardship are entwined with daily activities, transmitting practical skills and ethical understanding simultaneously. Observing elders, participating in communal ceremonies, and attending to the rhythms of the land teach younger generations to act responsibly, maintain balance, and uphold communal harmony. Knowledge, ethics, and practical skill are inseparable, passed down as an integrated whole that nurtures both individual character and collective well-being. Across these societies, the listener can perceive a universal principle. Life's practicalities, ethical frameworks, and communal responsibilities are reinforced when knowledge, ritual, and routine intersect. These intertwined practices provide stability, guide action, and cultivate resilience. They transform ordinary acts into lessons of foresight, care, and moral understanding, ensuring that each generation is equipped not only to survive but to thrive with wisdom, integrity, and connection. As the mind drifts gently, this scene invites reflection, that the convergence of communal knowledge, ritual, and daily practice forms the subtle scaffolding of human life. Across medieval homes, Victorian streets, and Apache ceremonial grounds, these practices create continuity, cultivate ethical awareness, and sustain the rhythms of daily existence, allowing life to unfold with balance, insight, and enduring grace. Across the ages, humans have lived in close dialogue with the cycles of nature, observing the rhythms of the seasons, the rise and fall of rivers, and the shifting patterns of weather to guide daily life, ritual, and adaptive practice. From the modest medieval village to the disciplined Victorian household and the sacred Apache landscape, seasonal and environmental cycles have shaped survival strategies, spiritual observances, and the cadence of ordinary life. In medieval Europe, the year unfolded as a tapestry of labor, ritual, and adaptation. Planting and harvesting dictated the rhythm of work. Cold winters demanded preservation of food, heating of homes, and careful attention to the health of the household. Religious festivals were aligned with natural cycles, offering both spiritual reflection and practical guidance. For example, observances tied to solstices, harvests, or saints' days provided communal structure, signaling when to sow, reap, or prepare for hardship. Daily routines were adjusted in accordance with these cycles, waking with daylight, conserving energy during the harshest months, and allocating labor efficiently. The careful attention to seasonal patterns ensured that communities could endure scarcity, disease, and the unpredictable challenges of climate. Victorian society, though increasingly industrialized, retained an awareness of environmental influence. Leisure, hygiene, and work schedules were often synchronized with natural light, tides, and seasonal variation. Seaside excursions were timed for healthful sea air, gardens were cultivated in alignment with seasonal growth, and household management reflected an attentiveness to temperature, weather, and daylight. Rituals such as seasonal fairs, harvest celebrations, and holiday observances blended enjoyment with practical planning, guiding communities in both social cohesion and environmental adaptation. For Apache communities, the connection between environmental cycles and human activity is profoundly holistic. Ceremonial observances, hunting, planting, and foraging are all attuned to the movements of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the signs of flora and fauna. Daily routines and seasonal rituals are inseparable from ecological awareness, teaching participants to act in harmony with the land rather than against it. Adaptive practices, whether in preparation for drought, flood, or resource scarcity, are informed by generations of observation, experience, and oral transmission, ensuring both survival and spiritual alignment with the cycles of nature. Across these contexts, the listener can perceive a pattern. The attentive observation of seasonal and environmental cycles fosters resilience, guides ritual and daily routines, and enables adaptive strategies that sustain life. Humans do not merely react to nature, they harmonize with it, integrating its rhythms into the structure of work, worship, and social life. This attentive engagement transforms time and environment into teachers, offering guidance, stability, and a framework for both practical survival and spiritual reflection. As the mind drifts into quiet contemplation, this scene invites gentle meditation, that life, with all its challenges and uncertainties, flows in rhythm with the cycles of the world. Across medieval villages, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache ceremonial spaces, the awareness of seasonal and environmental patterns informs every gesture, every routine, and every ritual, sustaining continuity, adaptability, and the subtle harmony between humanity and the natural world. Throughout human history, the natural world has served not only as a source of sustenance but also as a repository of wisdom, waiting to be observed, interpreted, and encoded into human practices. In medieval villages, Victorian towns, and Apache homelands, communities developed sophisticated methods of embedding environmental knowledge into ritual, observation, and storytelling, ensuring that practical understanding of the land, weather, and seasons persisted across generations. In medieval Europe, storytelling and ritual acted as mnemonic devices for environmental awareness. Legends and folktales encoded lessons about safe foraging, planting seasons, or the behavior of livestock. Religious festivals aligned with agricultural cycles, reinforcing knowledge of the land and its demands. Observation of natural signs, the blooming of plants, the migration of birds, or the phases of the moon, was interpreted and shared through communal stories and ritualized practice. These tales and observances allowed young members to internalize vital environmental cues while maintaining cultural cohesion and ethical understanding, linking survival, morality, and tradition. Victorian society, while increasingly urbanized, also encoded environmental knowledge into routines, educational practices, and leisure. Gardening manuals, household guides, and seasonal observances provided practical instruction, while poetry, novels, and moral tales often celebrated the rhythms of nature, teaching attentiveness and patience. Children learned to notice the signs of changing weather, the timing of planting and harvesting, and the care of domestic animals through both observation and the stories told by parents and mentors. Ritualized holidays and seasonal fairs preserved communal memory of environmental cycles, embedding practical knowledge into socially sanctioned practices. For Apache communities, environmental knowledge is inseparable from ritual and storytelling. Elders convey lessons through songs, chants, and oral histories, encoding the behavior of plants, animals, and the land into narratives that are at once practical, ethical, and spiritual. Ceremonies honor the cycles of nature, and participation in these rituals teaches observation, attentiveness, and adaptability. Through storytelling, young members learn to anticipate seasonal changes, recognize environmental hazards, and respond in ways that sustain both the community and the ecological balance. Knowledge is never abstract. It is lived, observed, and integrated into every act of daily life and ceremonial practice. Across these diverse contexts, the listener can perceive a universal truth. Environmental wisdom is preserved and transmitted most effectively when intertwined with ritual, storytelling, and careful observation. These methods transform practical survival strategies into living traditions, embedding understanding into culture, memory, and identity. By encoding environmental knowledge in stories and rituals, communities ensure continuity, resilience, and harmony with the world around them. As the mind drifts into a gentle, reflective state, this scene invites the listener to consider the quiet power of observation and narrative, that through stories, rituals, and daily attentiveness, humans have learned not only to survive but to thrive in alignment with nature. Across medieval villages, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache ceremonial grounds, environmental knowledge flows through generations, shaping practice, perception, and the delicate balance between life, community, and the natural world. Across time and place, human survival and flourishing have depended upon the delicate interplay between observation, creativity, and adaptation. From the modest dwellings of medieval Europe to the structured neighborhoods of Victorian Britain and the sacred Apache landscapes, the attentive engagement with environmental and social systems has nurtured ingenuity, problem-solving, and the capacity to shape life in response to ever-changing circumstances. In medieval villages, daily observation of the land, animals, and weather informed practical creativity. When crops failed or livestock suffered, individuals experimented with alternative planting techniques, herbal remedies, and tools adapted to local conditions. Social interactions reinforced this process. Knowledge shared among neighbors, midwives, or artisans was not merely transferred but transformed, refined, and applied creatively in new contexts. Adaptation emerged as a dialogue between observation, accumulated knowledge, and the practical demands of daily life, illustrating the profound human capacity to innovate within constraints. Victorian society similarly cultivated creativity through structured routines and close observation of social and environmental patterns. Industrialization and urban life demanded inventive solutions to health, hygiene, leisure, and social organization. Families adjusted domestic routines to accommodate seasonal changes, technological innovations, and social expectations, turning observation into strategic adaptation. The rise of seaside holidays, organized schooling, and structured leisure exemplifies how the combination of attentiveness and creative problem-solving shaped daily life, balancing pleasure, propriety, and practical necessity. For Apache communities, creativity and adaptation are deeply embedded in the integration of spiritual, ecological, and social knowledge. Observing the land, water, and weather informs not only practical actions, such as planting, hunting, or crafting, but also ceremonial practices that maintain harmony with natural cycles. Rituals themselves are adaptive, responding to shifts in the environment, communal needs, or the health of individuals. Creativity arises naturally from this continuous observation and interaction, producing solutions that are elegant, sustainable, and deeply aligned with ethical and ecological principles. Across these contexts, the listener can perceive a timeless pattern. Human creativity and adaptation are rarely the products of abstract thought alone. They emerge from attentive observation, experiential learning, and active participation within the intertwined systems of nature and society. Challenges become opportunities, constraints inspire innovation, and collaboration ensures that solutions are both practical and enduring. As the mind drifts gently into reflection, this scene encourages a quiet appreciation for the subtle intelligence woven into daily life. From medieval homes to Victorian neighborhoods and Apache ceremonial spaces, the human spirit thrives when curiosity, attentiveness, and creativity converge, allowing communities to adapt, innovate, and harmonize with the intricate rhythms of the world. Life is not merely endured, it is carefully observed, skillfully interpreted, and gracefully shaped through the intertwined forces of creativity and adaptation. Across centuries and cultures, the survival and flourishing of communities have depended upon the deliberate transmission of knowledge, skill, and resilience from one generation to the next. This transmission is not merely formal or abstract. It is woven into the fabric of daily life, ritual, and attentive participation, ensuring that experience, wisdom, and cultural continuity endure even amid the uncertainty of changing times. In medieval Europe, young members of the community learned through observation, apprenticeship, and hands-on participation. Children and adolescents watched midwives assist in childbirth, elders manage household and agricultural work, and artisans craft essential tools. Every gesture carried layered meaning: practical instruction, ethical guidance, and cultural continuity. Ritualized practices such as seasonal festivals, religious observances, and community gatherings further reinforce these lessons, embedding knowledge and moral awareness into repeated, lived experience. Through observation and participation, the young internalized both the technical skills and the ethical sensibilities needed to navigate the complexities of daily life, preparing them to contribute to the resilience of the household and community. Victorian households similarly fostered intergenerational learning through structured routines, moral instruction, and ceremonial participation. Children learned not only domestic skills, hygiene, and social etiquette, but also the importance of attentiveness, propriety, and communal responsibility. Seasonal holidays, family rituals, and leisure excursions offered opportunities to observe and participate in socially sanctioned behaviors, reinforcing practical competence and ethical understanding. Knowledge was transmitted experientially, ensuring that the wisdom of one generation became the foundation for the next, blending efficiency, morality, and social cohesion into daily life. For Apache communities, intergenerational transmission is profoundly holistic. Elders teach not only practical skills, such as planting, crafting, or healing, but also the ethical and spiritual principles that guide harmonious living. Children observe, participate, and engage in rituals, absorbing lessons through repetition, storytelling, and attentive involvement. The cycles of the seasons, the rhythms of ceremony, and the responsibilities of communal life create a living classroom in which knowledge, resilience, and cultural identity are inseparable. Every act of participation nurtures the capacity to adapt, the wisdom to interpret the natural and social world, and the moral grounding to sustain the community. Across these diverse contexts, the listener can sense a unifying principle: observation, ritual, and participation form the conduit through which knowledge, skill, and resilience flow across generations. The continuity of culture, the endurance of practical expertise, and the cultivation of ethical awareness are achieved not by abstract instruction alone, but through lived experience, attentive mentorship, and the careful guidance of elders. As the mind drifts gently into reflection, this scene invites awareness of the subtle, quiet power of human continuity. Across medieval homes, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache ceremonial spaces, the intergenerational transmission of knowledge and resilience ensures that each generation inherits not only the skills to survive but the wisdom to thrive, preserving the delicate balance of life, community, and the enduring flow of human culture. Throughout history, human communities have confronted uncertainty, scarcity, illness, and environmental challenges. Yet across medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache societies, communities cultivated a profound interweaving of emotional, practical, and spiritual resilience, an interdependence that allowed them to endure adversity with continuity, cohesion, and hope. In medieval villages, emotional resilience emerged through the close bonds of family, neighbors, and communal networks. The shared experience of hardship, whether illness, famine, or childbirth, created spaces for empathy, collective problem-solving, and mutual support. Practical resilience, however, was equally vital. Knowledge of herbs, labor distribution, food preservation, and household management allowed communities to anticipate challenges and respond effectively. Spiritual resilience provided meaning and a moral framework, embedding hope and courage in rituals, prayers, and ceremonies. Together, these forms of resilience created a web of support that enabled communities to navigate both the seen and unseen challenges of daily life. Victorian society similarly nurtured interconnected resilience. Structured routines, moral instruction, and civic engagement reinforced emotional stability, while careful planning, hygiene, and medical practices strengthened practical endurance. Spiritual and ethical observances, religious services, family rituals, and social morality offered guidance and comfort, shaping emotional and social cohesion. The interplay between emotion, practice, and belief ensured that individuals and communities could respond to industrial pressures, social change, and health challenges without fracturing, sustaining both personal well-being and communal harmony. For Apache communities, resilience is holistic and relational. Emotional resilience is cultivated through storytelling, communal gatherings, and shared participation in ceremonies. Practical resilience is grounded in observation of the land, preparation of resources, and adaptive responses to ecological variability. Spiritual resilience binds these elements together, situating human life within a moral, cosmic, and ecological framework that nurtures balance and harmony. The integration of these dimensions allows individuals and the wider community to respond fluidly to hardship, maintaining continuity, health, and identity through challenging times. Across these societies, the listener can perceive a universal truth. The endurance of human communities is not achieved through isolated strategies, but through the interdependence of emotional, practical, and spiritual resilience. When one dimension falters, the others provide support, creating a balanced, responsive, and enduring network of care and adaptability. As the mind drifts into a state of gentle contemplation, this scene invites reflection on the subtle, interwoven nature of resilience. Across medieval halls, Victorian streets, and Apache ceremonial grounds, communities thrive not only by surviving immediate challenges but by cultivating the integrated capacities, emotional, practical, and spiritual, that allow life, culture, and human connection to endure across generations. Across the sweeping currents of history, the continuity of human culture has rested upon the delicate threads of ritual, observation, and adaptive practice. In medieval Europe, Victorian Britain, and Apache societies alike, these intertwined elements provide the foundation for cultural identity, social cohesion, and the enduring rhythms of community life. In medieval villages, ritual, whether religious observance, seasonal festival, or communal labor, structured the passage of time and the unfolding of life. Observation of the land, weather, and social relationships informed practical adaptation, ensuring survival and continuity. Daily practices, honed through experience and communal guidance, reinforced both knowledge and social expectation. Together, these elements defined a shared understanding of the world, embedding ethical, practical, and spiritual frameworks into the fabric of daily life. Cultural identity was not abstract. It was lived, embodied, and continuously renewed through participation in these rhythms. Victorian society, despite the rise of industrialization and urbanization, preserved continuity through ritualized routines, social etiquette, and communal observances. Observation remained central. Attention to moral conduct, social norms, and environmental cues guided adaptive behavior, while structured daily practices reinforced the values and skills necessary for individual and communal functioning. Seasonal celebrations, leisure rituals, and family gatherings maintained bonds of identity and belonging, ensuring that even in times of social change, a coherent sense of community persisted. For Apache communities, continuity arises from the seamless integration of ritual, observation, and adaptive practice. Ceremonies, ecological attentiveness, and daily labor carry forward ancestral knowledge, ethical understanding, and practical skill. Cultural identity is inseparable from the environment, the rhythms of the seasons, and the moral and spiritual teachings embedded within ritual. Participation in these practices sustains social cohesion, links generations, and ensures that the community remains adaptive and resilient in the face of shifting circumstances. Across these contexts, the listener may perceive a universal principle. Cultural identity and communal cohesion are preserved not through rigid dogma but through the continuous practice of ritual, careful observation, and responsive adaptation. These practices weave individual experience into collective understanding, creating a network of shared memory, skill, and ethical awareness that endures across generations. As the mind drifts gently, this scene invites contemplation, that the essence of community is found in these recurring, attentive, and adaptive acts. Across medieval homes, Victorian neighborhoods, and Apache ceremonial grounds, the threads of ritual, observation, and practice intertwine, sustaining identity, reinforcing cohesion, and ensuring that the shared wisdom of the past flows seamlessly into the present and the generations to come. As we arrive at the culmination of this reflective journey, a vast panorama of human experience comes into focus, revealing overarching patterns of resilience, adaptation, and continuity that span centuries and continents. From the dimly lit chambers of medieval homes, through the structured neighborhoods and seaside retreats of Victorian Britain, to the sacred ceremonial spaces of Apache communities, the same threads of observation, ritual, and adaptive practice weave a tapestry of enduring human life. In medieval Europe, the daily interplay of survival, community, and belief created resilience that was both practical and spiritual. The attentive observation of environmental cues, the careful management of labor and household duties, and the repeated enactment of rituals all reinforced a sense of continuity and control. Challenges were met with both ingenuity and shared knowledge, and the rhythms of daily life, intertwined with moral and spiritual guidance, allowed communities to endure adversity while preserving cultural identity. Victorian society extended these patterns into a world transformed by industrialization and mobility. Structured routines, moral instruction, and social etiquette guided behavior and reinforced cohesion, while technological innovations such as railways facilitated new forms of leisure, exploration, and cultural exchange. Observation, planning, and adaptation were central, ensuring that individuals and families could navigate social change, health risks, and environmental demands. Ritual, whether domestic, civic, or recreational, maintained emotional balance and moral continuity, connecting generations and sustaining identity. For Apache communities, the integration of ecological awareness, spiritual practice, and communal participation illustrates the enduring power of human adaptation within relational and environmental systems. Knowledge is transmitted through observation, ritual, and participation, ensuring that resilience is both practical and ethical, while cultural identity and social cohesion remain tightly interwoven with the natural world. Adaptation is not reactive alone but proactive, informed by cycles, signs, and a holistic understanding of life's interconnectedness. Across all these societies, a universal principle emerges. Human resilience is cultivated through attentive observation, repeated practice, and ritualized engagement with both social and environmental systems. Adaptation is inseparable from learning, participation, and the shared wisdom of generations. Continuity is maintained not only through survival but through the careful preservation and transmission of knowledge, skill, and moral understanding. As the mind drifts into restful contemplation, this final scene invites quiet reflection that the patterns of human life, its endurance, creativity, and interconnectedness, are sustained by the subtle, deliberate, and persistent acts of observation, ritual, and adaptive practice. Across medieval halls, Victorian streets, and Apache ceremonial grounds, the human spirit demonstrates an extraordinary capacity to thrive, harmonize, and carry the wisdom of the past into the unfolding present. In this gentle understanding, sleep may arrive peacefully, carried by the knowledge that resilience, adaptation, and continuity are not merely abstract concepts, but living, breathing elements of daily life, shaping human existence across time, space, and culture. As our journey through centuries of human life slowly comes to a close, allow your mind to rest gently on the quiet patterns of resilience, adaptation, and wisdom that have guided people across time and space. From the dimly lit chambers of medieval homes, through the bustling seaside streets of Victorian Britain, to the sacred ceremonial grounds of Apache communities, every ritual, every observation, every careful practice reveals the extraordinary ways humans have lived, learned, and endured. Let your thoughts drift with the gentle flow of history, watching communities care for their young, tending to the land, celebrating the rhythms of life, and passing down knowledge from one generation to the next. Each story, each scene, is a thread in the vast tapestry of human experience, woven with patience, courage, and quiet strength. As you sink deeper into relaxation, remember that the wisdom of the past lives on in every thoughtful act, every observation of nature, and every moment of care and connection. Let these reflections carry you into restful sleep, guided by the enduring rhythms of life across time. Rest now, and let the gentle echoes of history whisper softly as you drift into dreams, surrounded by the continuity, resilience, and quiet beauty of human experience.